Hey, you guys, I'm incredibly excited. Steve, hang tight. I'm going to approve you shortly. Um, want to get my co-host up here. You guys, I'm super excited for this to be happening right now. Um, do me a favor while I want to get a couple links pushed up to the nest, a couple links pushed up in the pill. I want to give it give it a few minutes for everybody to stumble in here. Call your NHIs, call your wives, call your children, put them into this space right now. I want this to be a ton of fun. Clipping is enabled. Of course, the space is going to be recorded. You'll find a little clip button in the bottom right. Please DM this out. And I want to go really deep. I really want to get a feel for who Steve is, what kind of a person he was growing up, if there was any evolution. I really want him to feel like he's one of us in the UFO Twitter spaces, rather than somebody uh, dropping some disclosury stuff. And disclosure needs to become an adjective too. That's the main goal of the space. Um, Let me see if I don't feel complete until Tiff is here. Uh, Welcome, Tiff. I'm going to make you a co-host. And just 1 second here. Oh, yes, by the way, post the space out, DM it. And then also really important, so there's an older thread from the other post where we have a couple questions that we collected. Do not rely on there being enough time for audience Q&A. My handy co-hosts, Fringe and Tiff, are going to parse through all the questions. And so as they come in live, let me start that right now. And then Steve, I'll hand the mic over to you just to say a few words, and then we'll give you like more of a formal introduction here. I want to make sure I do this right. So hang tight with me for one moment. Actually, Fringe and Tiff, do you mind buying me some time, just talking a little bit, saying some stuff?
Yeah. Hey, welcome to the space, Steve. I'm glad that you're joining us. I'm excited to hear you recount your story. I often have had to dip in and out, but I've dedicated this time to hear your story. And the bits that I was able to hear kind of resonated with me as I've shared kind of my experience with you too. And I see a rise in this divine feminine energy, and I think a lot of us are having contact with it. So I love these experience or stories, since of course they do align with mine, but also just it gives me that hope of change coming and healing, the world experiencing healing. I think that's the bottom line of these messages, is that the world will be healing from trauma. So thank you.
Yeah, Steve, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. I'm super excited too. Again, everyone, please just retweet the space, follow your hosts, co-hosts, guests, speakers that may or may not have time to come up today. And really I just encourage everyone here, even.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'd like to just make a few points before we get started here.
Yeah, Steve, of course. Yeah, take it away.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. First thing, I am not a whistleblower. Okay, I was not read into anything. I am a former member of the intelligence community who had an experience. So first and foremost, I see myself as an experiencer. And so, you can look at me as someone who was on the inside, who had an otherworldly experience, or if you are on the rational skeptic mindset, uh, you know, you could see me as someone who became obsessed with the phenomenon and lost touch with reality. It's up to you, right? This is my story. I'm telling it from my point of view. I'm hoping to tell it as much as close to the actual truth as I can tell it. Second, I do not do public speaking for a living. There will be a lot of likes and uhs and you knows. After I did my first space, I saw some YouTube comments. Never read the YouTube comments. I saw one YouTube comment said I sounded like I was 13, and out of all the comments, that one hurt the most. So I'm trying to be honest and transparent as possible while navigating a minefield of things I cannot say. Yeah, sorry, I had to write these points down to make sure I got them all. I'm telling my story again because I feel pushed to or compelled to, and I'm hoping that this will serve as a proof of concept for other witnesses and experiencers to come forward and share their story in a safe, moderated space with trusted hosts. There is an Australian gentleman named who goes by Steve Austin, who has proposed investing $500,000 to $1 million to develop a 24/7 disclosure spaces network. I'm hoping we can convince him that providing financial incentives to the host to produce high quality spaces is a worthwhile endeavor. And for the record, I will never allow myself to make a dime off of my story. And my last point, I'm doing my best to protect my anonymity. I have a family, and just coming on spaces is a risky endeavor for me. I do have a life. And if you walk away after this thinking I'm a victim of magical thinking, I'm totally okay with that. And I have talked enough in spaces, as someone has said to me. I've probably spent 40 to 50 hours of the past few weeks answering questions. So I am more than happy to fade into the background after this. So yeah, just let me keep on keeping on. That's what I got.
Thank you, Steve. I would like to tell you that you are in a safe space, at least here. We will not troll you unless it's lighthearted and fun, and I guarantee you will probably have to. But overall, you know, we're friendly here. We can't guarantee the internet won't come through, but I'm sorry that you experienced such negative feedback when you're literally just trying to share your experience. And I don't ever intend to make money off my doom or my experience either, just because I feel like you shouldn't. About things like this if you're really trying to share a message.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Hopefully you can hear me, Steve. I just want to just remind the audience that when experiencers come into spaces, we risk a lot. We risk just, just as human beings, we risk our hearts and souls. We get a lot of flack and nasty comments. We get people talking about us in chats and in other spaces.
Ready when you are to kick this thing off.
Oh, can you not hear Fringe, Steve?
Oh, sorry, I cannot hear French. Do I need to exit and come back in?
No, I'll do it. I'll recycle.
It's always a great start if one of the hosts or the co-hosts, if they can't hear someone, it means the message is really important. And at this point, I think we should just start welcoming resistance. I think it's always a good sign at this point. If it's really important, there's going to be something fighting you because you have something valuable that you're doing. I'm going to give it a little bit of time. There we go. French, give me one moment.
I heard her just fine last night in a space, so I'm not sure why I can't hear her now.
It's just signal. If it goes in and out, it will lose audio for whoever was speaking at the time it happened.
So Steve, I was the host in the space last night, and there were several people I couldn't hear. I had to rely on like closed captioning, and so there's a traveling bug that happens a lot, and it'll travel from the speaker panel. It'll circulate depending on the number that goes up and down. So it's a known issue that Elon hasn't fixed yet.
Okay.
So hopefully, Steve, you can hear me now. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I just want to encourage everyone in the space just to be a lot more gentle on experiencers who have the courage to come into spaces and tell our stories. I've said this now several times this last couple weeks. Experiencers are talking about things that sound like science fiction. And if you want disclosure, you're going to have to become comfortable with things that sound like science fiction. It's just very simple. This, clean disclosure that we're asking for from the government to show us the UFOs and the bodies, that's not what this is about. It's a lot more woo than that. So please just be gentle, keep an open mind. If you find your mind immediately going to, oh, liar, grifter, mental illness, psychotic, try to just take that down a notch and just sit with an open mind and ask yourself, what if this is true? Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you, Steve, for being here.
Thank you.
Hey, so Tiff, I resent the co-host invite. Maybe I didn't send it and I thought I did. So there we go, it's working. So Steve, we're gonna start in a second. I found this article on Jay Stratton. It was written by George Knapp. I think it came out 2021. It gives some background on OSAP and just the initial developments of the U.S. government needing to figure out how to deal with these reportings. Is it cool with you if I ease us into that to start off?
Certainly, go for it.
Let me make sure of all the links up top. So very first slide on the far right, we do have 6 CMEs, a bunch of geomagnetic storms. This may I'm hoping the grid doesn't fall until right after this space. You guys, this space is recorded, but I would definitely try to download it afterwards, take it offline, just in case Twitter servers go down, not even due to a hack. So I think the electronic gods are going to bless us. So that's like a short video you guys can watch later. Steve's very first space with Courtney Marcassani is up in the very top as a second slide. Let me push this article up there so people can follow along. And Steve, I want you to relax. One of the reasons we're asking, so you're quite. Oh, I'm sorry. If you take a look in the purple pill, let me push that up there as well. So any of your questions, if you posted on the previous thread, we have them up so we can see those. And for anybody who doesn't want to bounce back and forth, we have a second one for live Q&A questions. Tiff and Fringe are just going to make sure that they're like appropriate. Tiff and Fringe, I'm going to go far back and just get a feel for Steve, but at any point, please take over, interrupt me, jump in, and interject whichever questions that you like. There are a few questions that we're parsing through to make sure that they do not put Steve in more jeopardy than he's already putting himself. That's the main reason we're filtering for this stuff. Let me get the article, and then we're going to be ready to go. There we go. That's the article. I had no idea that Jay Stratton was the person who proposed a name change from UFO to UAP. I had no idea that he was that guy.
I'm going to interrupt real quick. Ulrich, for the audience members who might not have been here in the beginning, we're definitely going to be letting Steve go through his full story. If you have questions, just go ahead and put them in the on the post that Ulrich is putting up into the nest, or in the purple pill if you can see that, or you can even DM me your questions. We want to let Steve get through his story without any interruption.
Yeah, and I would honestly, I'd refrain from DMing the questions. If we can keep all the questions on one thread, I think that's going to make the lives of Tiff and Fringe a lot easier. I don't want you to have to, you know what I mean, go through a million different ones. I want to make it easy for you because you're already dealing with 2 different threads. All right, so I'm just going to read this, and we'll take it. And we have some time, so yeah, we like like Steve, just sit back, relax. I want this to be I want this to feel like missing time, but in a good way. So this is pulling up the article right now. You guys can hear me all right, right?
Yeah. Steve, do you want to just start from the beginning, I guess?
No, I'm going to read this article just so we have some background on Jay Stratton, because there's an email from Jay Stratton that kind of kicks this whole thing off, and I didn't know much about Jay Stratton, so I kind of want to ease into it with this. All right, so this article is written by George Knapp. It was posted February 6, 2023, so a bit more than a year ago. Former intelligence official breaks silence on government UFO investigations. Las Vegas, Jay Stratton is one of the United States government's highest ranking and most experienced UFO hunters. During his long career working with various intelligence agencies, Stratton might have seen more of the Pentagon's hidden UFO files than anyone. He's the only person in the federal government to have worked directly on all three of the most recent UFO programs, including one based in Las Vegas. When a mysterious unidentified flying object dubbed the Tic Tac alerted U.S. Navy aviators and sensors off the coast of San Diego in 2004, the federal government dropped the incident instead of investigating it. The first in-depth probe into the incident occurred 5 years later under the auspices of a then secretive program called OSAP, or the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program, created by the Defense Intelligence Agency with black budget funding spearheaded by Senator Harry Reid. The Tic Tac was the first UFO incident tackled by OSAP and its contractor, Las Vegas aerospace pioneer Robert Bigelow. The US released the report in 2018, and Stratton is the man who wrote it. Stratton said his work into the incidents was just that, rather than a passion project. I didn't really have a passion growing up, said Stratton. I didn't have all the books. I didn't watch all the TV shows. I stepped into a job at the Defense Intelligence Agency where some things came across my desk. From 2008 until 2021, nearly everything related to UFO activity came across Jay Stratton's desk. He was the individual who decided to abandon the acronym UFO in favor of UAP, or Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. Stratton worked at the highest levels of naval intelligence, which loaned him to the Defense Intelligence Agency, where he excelled at reverse engineering. He and his colleague, Dr. James Lukatsky, a rocket scientist, saw reports of the unknown craft. A rocket scientist saw reports of the unknown craft. Stratton assumed that a central location was analyzing those reports. Quote, as we tried to find that office, we found nothing, said Stratton. They set out to create an office that would fit that bill. Dr. Lukatsky was reading about a UFO hotspot named, and this is in quotes, Skinwalker Ranch. After a visit to the property, Dr. Lukatsky pitched the creation of a formal investigation into the location. Reed agreed to fund it, and Bigelow landed the contract. Stratton consulted with the OSAP program and later its successor, ATIP, or the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. In 2017, then head of ATIP, Lue Elizondo, resigned and revealed the program's existence to the New York Times. Stratton's boss asked him to come back and cobble together a new program. Congress eventually formalized that effort under a new name, the UAP Task Force. One of Stratton's projects was the creation of a comprehensive but classified briefing that included video of UAP and photos collected by the military. Most of those images remain unreleased. Some were leaked, including pictures of objects encountered on the East Coast and buzzing Navy ships on the West Coast. Stratton scoffed at debunkers who explained away the objects as flares, drones, or birds. It's frustrating because you know the rest of the story, and you can't tell the rest of the story, said Stratton. In 2021, Stratton left the UAP Task Force, but only after his work formed the basis of a stunning congressional report of 144 incidents the task force investigated. 143 were considered unidentified. All right. So I found that one incredibly helpful for me just to get caught up. It filled in a lot of gaps. Fringe, you're saying that the purple pill isn't showing for you, is that right?
It's not, but don't worry about it. That's why I suggested if somebody wanted to DM me their questions, that was fine. I can't see the purple pill, but it's no worries.
So everything I usually put in the purple pill, I try to push up. So if you look at the second slide from the left, that post will take you to the post that's actually in the purple pill. I was in another space and I also didn't see the purple pill, but I saw the thread within it. So the one that says live is the one that's connected to the space, the post of the space we're in right now. So that's the one that people see in the nest. So yeah, Tiff and Fringe, before I start, is there anything you want to start off with first?
For me, I would just love to hear Steve's story from the very beginning, wherever Steve would like to start and tell his story. And then my own preferred style is then to write down my questions and go back and kind of fill in the gaps and ask clarification questions. Because I think being an experiencer, I think it just flows better if the person can just tell their story. And I'm not sure that's actually been done yet. I think Steve's just kind of been in and out of spaces, and he hasn't had a chance to get his full story out without any interruptions. So that's what I would love to hear from Steve today.
Okay. And Tiff, for you, is there anything specific that you really wanted to start off with?
Just Steve's story from the beginning, so I can fully understand it from his perspective. And I also will be writing down my questions so I can really understand what's going on.
And if you can help me with, the audience questions that are relevant in the moment, please interject and please jump in.
I think we'll do questions right after he's done telling his story. That way everybody has kind of like the right questions to ask. Right now, people are asking questions with not the whole story. And so once questions may be answered in his revelations.
Yeah, I'm saying if you have the urge, if you see something that's relevant, I'm saying just interrupt me if it makes sense to you. And those questions are obviously like, within within the to make sure that Steve remains safe. Steve, thank you. Is it okay if I go back and sort of get an idea? Obviously, you can avoid whatever specifics you want, but I kind of want to get an idea of who you are and how you grew up. Is that okay with you?
Sure, that's fine with me.
First of all, like right now, can you give us an idea just by decade? Are you in your 30s? Are you in your 40s? Yeah, just something like that. Like currently where you are, like in your life, like, you know what I mean? What's important to you?
Yeah. So I'm in my 40s, right? Still pretty active guy. I have a family. I have kids. Wife who loves me. This stuff drives her crazy, of course. But yeah, I'm in a good place, right? I'm still interested in this phenomenon. I was interested in it as a kid. Like a lot of us were, watching movies, reading books. It was those damn Time Life Mysteries of the Unknown books that really got me into this. And then I think I read the book Majestic by Whitley Strieber when I was 10 years old. There probably wasn't another kid around within 100 miles that read that damn thing. But yeah, so I was, I was pretty hooked. I was pretty hooked into this when I was a kid, and then in my teens, I found Christianity, so I put all this on the back burner and didn't give it much thought anymore. And then in my 20s, I kind of went through this atheist.
Hold on. Can we, before you get there,
Go ahead.
can we slow down a little bit?
Sure.
Majestic. I wish I had read the book. That's by Strieber. Fringe or Tiff, did you guys read that book by any chance? I know you read a lot, Fringe.
No, I didn't.
Is that one of? I assume that's an important book, Steve. Can you tell me why it meant so much to you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it was a fictional account of the Majestic 12 program, and there were the MJ12 documents were at the back in the appendix. And as a 10-year-old, I'm like, oh my god, the president signed off on this, and he knows. And you can imagine what a 10-year-old would feel reading this kind of stuff. So it just really spoke to me, and I think it shows how deep I was into this topic at such a young age.
And you were 10 reading Majestic?
Yeah. I was at maybe 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old, reading Majestic. I got it at the half price bookstore. Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Did you
Yeah.
okay, I want to stop right there. I have been obsessed with anything paranormal. I was not a particularly gifted reader. I wasn't a below average reader. but I certainly was not reading a Strieber book at 10, 12 years old. And I certainly didn't know anything about MJ12. Did you have friends that could relate to you at all? Did you know anybody else
No,
who read that book?
no, absolutely not. I was the weirdo kid that was into this. You know, I had a hard time. Yeah, I was scared and fascinated at the same time. Right. I remember one time when I was young, I had to sleep alone upstairs, and you know, of course, it freaked me out because I thought, you know, aliens were coming for me and whatnot. So I was. It was definitely like in my psyche, right? That this idea that these visitors could come anytime, anywhere, right? And then of course my stepdad, he was like, he tried to bring some kind of common sense to this and say, well, what makes you special, Steve? Why would they come and get you? And I didn't have an answer for it. I just remember saying, I don't know, but they are.
Wait,
So
wait, and
I don't remember.
and this is when are
Go
you
ahead.
talking about much later or in your youth?
Yeah, in my youth, when I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Did you have an actual experience or was it just a fear?
I think it was just a fear. I remember there was one time when I was, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years old, and I thought there was an outline of the shape of a head outside my window. I don't know. I was so young. I was so young. It's really hard to make sense of what that really was. So kind of on the fence about it.
Um,
But that's about it.
how did
I haven't had an actual experience
how did you even know to
when
find the book Majestic? Were you always in bookstores? How did you even know to look for Whitley Strieber?
Yeah, it had a picture of the classic gray alien on the front, and that, of course, that communion book with the cover of the gray on that book that scared the crap out of me.
And so you were attracted
So
to it, but you weren't ready for those alien eyes. So like a step down, you went for Majestic.
I think it was just available, right? I mean, I was, like I said, I was fascinated with grays. I was watching shows I shouldn't have been watching when I was a kid. I got really steeped into it as a kid.
What other shows did you watch?
Just the typical shows. Of course, Unsolved Mysteries. Whenever they would have a UFO show, Flight of the Navigator was one of my favorite movies. E.T. Just the classic '80s movies that had alien invaders or visitors.
Um, Steve, my phone is blowing up from people who are backseat drivers who are upset over the
I am
questions that I'm asking
expressing
you.
that Ulrich should let Steve share his story and that he just asked him what shows he watched as a child. And we are here to interview Steve, but not after he has shared his story.
Yeah, and we're gonna get there. We're gonna get everything. I think this is actually incredibly important.
What TV shows
And
you watched as a child? I'm just kidding, Steve.
so
I'm just messing with Ulrich. We could have been DMing this.
yeah, so the Majestic book. Okay, what did your parents say when you were reading Strieber's book? Growing up, did they
Well,
was it a
yeah.
common
To be honest,
dinner talk?
no, no, no. To be honest, they should have. They should have. Yeah, as a parent myself, there is no way in hell I would let my child read anything about this. I don't talk about this stuff in front of them, right? I don't bring this stuff into my house. I remember how terrifying it was for me. And so, yeah, my parents should have done a better job of paying attention to what I was being exposed to.
Did they read the book?
No.
Wow, that's interesting. So you already had some sort of insight into the phenomenon that sort of wasn't shared with the rest of the family.
Yeah, yeah, just based on my own reading and what I was into.
Okay. Roughly area in the country. Do you mind sharing that? Where I'm basically trying to figure out where you like near a UFO hotspot. Sort of.
No, I grew up in the Southwest in suburbia. Uh, so highly populated areas, right? I don't remember seeing any craft in the sky.
And what kind of a kid were you? Were you comic books kid, nerd, sports? Give us an idea.
Yeah, I was in the comic books a lot, right? In addition to this paranormal stuff that, like I said, freaked me out, but I was still fascinated.
Okay. And were you always like so for instance, I had dreams of becoming like, and never happened, I had dreams of becoming like a neurosurgeon. I wanted to go into academia. I wanted to research consciousness. Did you end up exactly like you envisioned later as a teen, as you went to college? Is this always, your previous job, was that what you had imagined doing?
I wanted to go in the military, which I did. There's a picture from my, I think, 6th grade, right, of what we wanted to be when we grow up. And so I said I wanted to be in the military and I wanted to be a scientist. Well, I wasn't smart enough to be a scientist, but I was smart enough to get into the military. So, which is a joke, right? But yes, I did go to the military.
Why? What kind of a scientist did you want to be?
I don't know. I probably would have wanted to be a physicist of some kind. I liked more of the theoretical stuff, not the actual application.
Yeah. So you were inspired by people like Einstein.
I try as a child, as best I could. I was interested in that stuff and in reading books.
Yeah.
About
I
that.
mean, who isn't? Also, I can't speak for everybody, but I don't for a second have the impression of you that your intelligence is lacking for any field of science, physics included. So I'm saying you don't come across as somebody who couldn't cut it as a scientist, at least from my perspective. So you chose the military. At the time, would you have considered yourself like a patriot?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had a strong sense of sacrifice and patriotic duty, and I wanted to do what I thought was required of me.
And at that time when you joined the military, was there any kind of, the field of ufology in terms of how much the government reveals about UFOs pretty much changed around 2017? When you went into the military, was there any thought in your mind that you might have some sort of NHI affiliated anything?
Definitely not. I was still a strong Christian at the time, and kind of bound by like the dogma that goes along with that.
Okay. So can you take me from joining the military to however you like, from that point to this email from Jay Stratton in 2019? Can you just give me sort of a transition, however you
Sure.
like?
Yeah. So at 18, I enlisted in the military. I did my 4 years. Did a few deployments overseas. After that, I used the GI Bill to go to college. Got my liberal arts degree, and I knew I wanted to go into the intelligence community. So I got a job as a contractor, working for one of the big defense contracting firms. And then from there, I did contracting work. I bounced around a few times, chasing a higher salary, because I was paid peanuts in the beginning. But I got my clearance. I was doing contracting work. I bounced around for about 5 years. The organization that I eventually worked for, they direct hired me. Okay, so I kind of skipped the normal, because I was already in the community. I was able to skip the process of applying online and going through all that. So I essentially, they put my resume on the top of the stack. So I got direct hired, and I did traditional intelligence work. Right, I don't want to get into that. What I did, it's really not that interesting, right? But I did traditional intelligence work. I will say I did not do counterintelligence. I never did that. That doesn't fit my personality. I don't like pointing the finger back at my own people, right? So I did stuff that was focused overseas, and I was a what I would call a uh, let's say a headquarters weenie. right? That's what that's what we would say, right?
Can you? I grew up half my life in Germany. Can you just explain the term headquarters weenie?
Yeah, I'm just it's a joke, but yeah. So I worked at headquarters, right? So I did a few deployments overseas that nothing that long. So my primary job was doing strategy, programmatic stuff back here at headquarters. Okay, and so I would support our people overseas, just helping them with, like I said, the strategic stuff, the programmatic stuff back here.
When anything in the military that I assume, yeah, I mean, it's so far removed. I assume you're safe to talk about it. Do you mind saying what you did, how you spent your time there, how you felt about it? I'd like to know more.
In the military, yeah, in the military, I was infantry, nothing special. I did a few deployments. Um, yeah, I mean, there's not, it was a challenging time for me. I mean, infantry's hard. It's a rough life. And but I chose infantry because it had to do with that kind of that patriotic duty that I felt I had, that was required of me, and that sense of sacrifice. So I did, like I said, I did 4 years of that, and then I went to college after that.
Can I ask where you were deployed?
Yeah, I did. I did a deployment to Iraq. So I was in Iraq at the start of the invasion. I didn't see any combat, thankfully, but I was there for a little bit, and I was in one of the lucky units that was able to first come back home, because I was enrolled for school in the fall, and they're telling me that I may get extended, right? So that was not cool. I was not okay with that, and thankfully everything worked out.
Any high strangeness, anything weird? Iraq, especially the museum, is at the heart of a lot of stories. Did you notice anything, or did you hear anything?
No, I didn't. No, it's just I spent most of my time in the desert in sandstorms and burning heat, right? So that's where I spent my time.
Did you know that after your degree that you'd want to go into intelligence?
Yeah, I did. I first got the inkling. I started reading all the spy novels when I was in the military. So I thought, hey, I could be the next Jason Bourne, right? So uh, that didn't really fit my personality in the end. And what happened? Yeah, I went to college and got my liberal arts degree, and then, like I said, got a job doing contracting work in intelligence.
What did you study in college?
I was a political science major.
Political science.
So I was trying to do things that would help me get into the community, right? I was trying to pad my resume as best I could.
And political science is a typical major for any of the intelligence agencies?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were you? Did you have a natural interest in politics, the workings of government?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. More international politics, not domestic.
Okay. All right. Yeah, take me to how do we get to the email with Jay Stratton?
Yeah. Let me go on for a little bit. So
Yeah.
So once I became a staffer, all right, government employed by, not as a contractor. I did traditional intelligence work, working on different areas of the world, and then in what was it, in 2019 or 2020, I was sent an email, and the email was from Jay Stratton, and the email had already been forwarded like 40 or 50 times. I'm not even kidding. Like, once the interns got a hold of it, they were just blasting it out there, right? So you could see this long thread of this email chain, right, of how many people had gotten it. I mean, it was spreading like wildfire. Okay, and I'm not going to go into too much of the email, but it mentioned this UAP task force, and at the time, I'd never heard of it. I'm like, what the hell is this task force? Why is the government looking into UFOs? And so that started my quest of having to know more about this. And with that email in hand, I eventually found um, the briefing that came along with it. I found an analyst that had attended the briefing, and this was all over the course of several weeks, or maybe even a month or two. And I found the analyst. So I spoke to the analyst. I'm like, hey, what the hell's going on here? And by the way, I still have a day job. Okay, so but you're given a lot of freedom, right? And as long as the work was as long as the mail was being answered, I was fine to kind of pursue my own little thing here. Um, but it was distracting for sure. And then what happened? So I found the analyst. I talked to the analyst, and I uh, I eventually I found the representative, a representative, or someone that worked with the task force from my organization. So I got a name in hand, and I'm like, oh my god, right? Like, this is it. I gotta go talk to this guy, right? I gotta figure out what the hell is going on. And I had no idea how to just cold call him and just work my way in there. So I thought, oh, I know what I'll do, right? I'll ask him. I'll tell him, hey, I want to talk about China, right? Let's talk about China. So
So
I get a
so
meeting with.
and hold on, Steve. I'm just a little bit confused because I might have a misunderstanding about the UAPTF, right? It had to be formed, right? And so Jay Stratton, I assume this briefing leads to the formation of UAPTF, and you find an analyst who was like part of that briefing, and are you just trying to find out more information about UAPTF, or are you trying to understand like where the reports actually get sent to?
No, no, I don't care about the mechanics of the thing. I'm trying to find out more about the task force and what its mission is,
Okay.
right? And what they're working on. And so yeah, so I eventually I get this meeting with the with this guy that is helping or talking to the task force within my organization. So I knock on his door, right? And I'm like, hey, let's talk about China. And after about 5 minutes, I'm like, hey, after about 5 minutes.
You start with, so did it work? Is China the gateway drug to the
Yeah, let me
phenomenon?
finish, dude.
Yeah,
Let
I'm
me
sorry.
finish.
I'm sorry.
Let me finish. All right. So after about 5 minutes of talking about China, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. So what's going on with UFOs? Right. And at that point, he knew I bamboozled him. Right. He knew it was a bait and switch. Right. And he's like, well, and he's just giving me his opinion here. He's like, well, there's these pilots, right? Nobody can tell these pilots what they saw, right? There's balloons and parallax, and just I couldn't believe it. He's just running off this list of skeptical responses, right, to all these encounters and stuff. And at the same time, he's kind of bad mouthing the pilots, right? Like, well, the pilots tell their commanders, and the commanders, they go tell Congress, and Congress gets up in arms about the whole thing. And my first thought is, I would love for you to tell this, you as an analyst, a weenie behind a desk. I would love for you to go tell this to one of these pilots in a bar and see what happens. Right? I would love to see. I would pay money to see that. Right? To see how that pilot would react to you. But of course, I didn't say that. So then after he says this, I'm just kind of like shocked, right? Like, because he's just bad mouthing this entire effort, and he's making it very clear that this is something he doesn't want to be involved in, right? And then I tell him, well, what about TTSA, To the Stars Academy, right? What's going on with that? Right? You got freaking, you got all these former intel people that are involved in this effort. I say, what about Jim Simovan? What about Lue Elizondo? All these people. And he's like, well, nobody can really tell them. Or what did he say? He said something like, well, it's their hobby, right? Everyone has a hobby type thing. I'm like, I couldn't believe it. Like, are you freaking gaslighting me here? Like, what's going on here? So that was a dead end. right? A total dead end for me. But yeah, if you want me to stop there, if you have a question or something,
Yeah,
let me know.
Fringe, do you have any follow-up questions?
No, I'm good.
This guy is like the liaison to the UAP. This guy is more officially UAPTF, right?
Well, I'm not going to comment on what his role was, right? But he was talking. I will say he was talking to the task force.
And you were surprised that he was just so dismissive, and these pilots are incredibly well trained.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah. What happens then?
Yeah. So then, so after this meeting, right? I'm kind of deflated, right? Just talking to this guy is talking about balloons and whatnot, and so what that I'm deflated for a hot minute, right? And then I get excited again, because who can ever really put down this topic, right? So then I go and I know somebody who knows Jay Stratton, right? And so this guy, this friend of mine, I'm like, dude, you got to introduce me to him, right? Like I gotta talk to the task force, right? He does me a favor, he does me a solid. He sends an email introducing me, right? And the folks at the task force, they write me back and they say, hey, well, I'm sorry. First, I email them. I say, hey, my name's Steve. I work in this organization. I'm happy to help you with anything you need. If you guys need points of contact in the building, if you need me to do some type of historical research, right? Like I'm totally there. I'm down for it, right? Just you let me know what you need, and I will help you. So they wrote back. I was surprised. They wrote back. They said, thanks for volunteering. We don't get a lot of volunteers, so really appreciate that. And so I eventually got to meet in person some folks on the task force, and they were super cool, right? They were super cool. They came across to me as people that were dedicated to finding out what the hell was going on. Okay. And they were doing outreach in the community. So it was a solid effort, right? Like its heart was absolutely in the right place. And now and I'm talking about the task force, right? So, and this was 2.5 years ago. I should say this too. This was 2.5 years ago, or 3 years ago, right? That all this kind of was going on, right? And so the task force, they like I said, their heart was in the right place. They were dedicated to finding out what was going on, and they were open minded. Okay, one of the people I spoke with, he told me kind of the metric that he used to evaluate what was going on. So it's like this. There were three levels, right? The first level of likely suspects, right, is Russia, China, Iran, and then you have the dark horse countries like Sweden or Israel, right? Some other countries that may be flying these UAPs, okay? And that was like the first level metric, okay? And then the second level, then you had breakaway civilizations, right? And it's funny to see. It was funny at the time I heard this, like, wow, is the government actually considering this? And it may have not been in the government, it may have just been this one person, right? But this was his level of thinking. So the second level was breakaway civilizations, right? Like Atlantis, Nazis that fled to Argentina, right? I
No,
mean,
that was one of them. That was one of them.
no, I mean, I'm kind of
Hypothetically.
exaggerating on that, but Atlantis was definitely one of them. And then like Wakanda, right? Like that kind of civilization that broke off and did their own thing. That was the
Okay,
second
these
level. And then
categories, are they most likely to least likely, most classified, most adversarial? What's the hierarchy here?
well, the first level is most likely,
Okay.
right? And then like I said, this wasn't this may have this likely was not an official metric, right? This was just
Thinking out
what
loud.
this one person
Yeah.
was using. Yeah. And so and then the third level, right, was time travelers, aliens, time traveling aliens, interdimensional et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but what I'm trying to communicate is that they had a process that guided their thinking. Okay, and so, obviously they're going to look at the state actors, right, to be the most likely suspect, right, for these UAP sightings.
So when I see the categories that there was that public hearing in 2021, and they make it like, our own tech, adversary tech, weather phenomenon, sensor noise, and then other, which other summarizes the last, from my perspective, 80 years of gaslighting. There's actually much more thinking behind other, right? There's behind the scenes, the government
I think
is
so.
thinking stuff as crazy as as Atlantis and time travel.
Well, like I said, though, some people are still thinking balloons, ostensibly, right? That's what they're saying, balloons, right? Like, give me a break, So, so the government is not united, right? It is not a monolithic organization, and different organizations, different people have different opinions and assessments and all this other stuff. So, but it was nice to hear. It was nice to talk to some people who were open minded and were absolutely committed to getting to the bottom of this.
When you said they did community outreach, what does that mean? If you can just paint a picture for me.
Yeah, I mean, so the town, and I'm just going to comment on what's already out there. The task force was a handful of people. They couldn't possibly tackle this massive problem, right? So I mean, they have to reach out to other parts of the government, to tackle this problem. And so I don't want to get too much into what it is they do, right? Because I don't want to say anything I'm not supposed to. But they that's the kind of outreach they're doing, right? They're trying to figure this problem out. They can't do it on their own, right? They need to reach out to other organizations to bring them into the fold, right? To get them on their side, right? Because you have the task force doing analysis, right? They do analysis, and so ideally they would want all 18 intelligence organizations to be on board with that analysis. So that's what, like I said, that's why they do the research, the outreach, right? And to try to bolster their analysis and think of things they haven't thought of, that type of stuff.
And yeah, so you make the connection with them, and French, please jump in anytime. I don't want to break the flow. What happens after that? They break down like their thinking behind this.
Yeah. What happens after that? So about this time, okay, that's a good segue. Around the same time, Anjali comes on the scene, okay, with her explosive story, right, of a base in a mountain, right, and she went through a tunnel and she met these NHI beings, and yeah, I was just fascinated by this. Of course, she's former DIA, so because she was in the intelligence community, I felt like, oh man, this is a credible person, okay, and at least from what the hours long interviews I heard, right? So I reached out to her on Twitter. I sent her an email, and by the way, this is risky. Okay, so it's risky sending people random emails, right, on social media, right, if you're in the intelligence community. Okay, you don't want to raise attention to yourself. You want to play by the rules, and you don't want people asking you questions about this later, right? So, like I said, it was risky for me to reach out, but I felt a pull. I felt like I needed to do this. Okay, so I sent her an email. I said, hey, my name is Steve. I work for the government, but I'm reaching out on my own. Right? I don't represent them. I'm reaching out on my own, and I would love to hear more about your story. Can I buy you a cup of coffee sometime? Because I thought she was in the DC area. So she eventually writes me back, and she says, I'm no longer in the DC area, but happy to converse with you on this. So me and her, we sent emails back and forth, getting to know each other and more about her story. And eventually, two former two people who have supported the task force in the past, they they sat with me in 2 Zoom calls that lasted about 7 hours, and each one was 3.5 hours long. I mean, it was freaking long. Okay. And so we talked with Anjali. We of course asked her a ton of questions, right? And one of the people I was with, he had a physics background, and that came in handy because she was talking about a lot of new age concepts, right? That, like, things like density and vibration, just kind of the stuff you hear a lot in that community. But for my physics friend that was next to me, he understood it completely. It made total sense to him, right? So he was able to take these new age, I call them new age, right? But these ancient concepts, right? Of, these ancient concepts, and then translate them into, oh, okay, so density is just a bunch of light and blah 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 blah, right? So he would kind of break it down technically for me, right? So we had 7 hours of meetings, and then
And can you
and
explain, like, you reached out to her privately, right? And she's no longer working for the DIA. So are you saying, like,
correct.
I should just, since I have these contacts at the UAPTF, I should let them know? How did they end up joining the meeting?
So I made, through my networking and knocking on doors, right, in the building, and asking questions about this, who's doing what with this topic. I made some friends along the way. Okay. And like what happens with this phenomenon, right? You make connections that you can't believe you made, so let me say this. I found the people in my organization are were just like me, and that they were trying to figure out what was going on. So we all connected, and that was amazing for me. That was just amazing. And so we're in the meeting. Yeah, let me focus on that for a second. The meeting. So we're in the meeting, and she's telling us all this stuff, about the beans, about her experience, right? And I ask her, so what is it you want out of this? Anjali, what do you want out of this meeting? And she says to me, well, essentially, I want to talk to the people in charge. Okay. So I assumed that meant like the task force and maybe even congressional leaders that were focused on this topic, right? And I'm thinking, as soon as she said that, I'm thinking, and I didn't know her that well then, right? But I'm thinking, lady, the only people that will meet with you are in this room now, right? This virtual room. And there's no way you're going to get an audience, right, with anybody. And as soon as I thought that, she said, the beings would like me to, the beings would like to give you some information to move this along. And I thought, wow, this is it, so she gave us some information, and I'm not going to talk about that here. But she gave us some information to help move things along. Um, and now, one of the things she said to us, okay, that gave her some credibility, was what was one of the questions. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time kind of remembering all this. It was years ago. Uh, One of the things she said was, why is Lue Elizondo? Why is Lue Elizondo telling everyone that NHI is a threat? He knows they're not a threat because he's had contact with them. Okay, so I I heard later. I mean, this was news to me. Like, Lou had contact. Like, whoa, what does that even look like, right? Did they come to him in a dream? Did they show up in his bedroom? Did he go into a government building and shake hands? Like, I don't know. But I heard from someone that was indeed the case, that Lou has had contact. So, that, whether it's true or not, I don't know. I mean, that's a trust me, bro story. Maybe we'll find out more in his book. But at the time, I was, folks, they heard Anjali say that, and they decided to listen more intently to what she had to say. So this was around the same time as the Anjali, the meetings. I actually, maybe this is a good stopping point. Do you want to say anything? Or
Yeah, Fringe, like
I guess let me catch my
yeah,
breath.
and take your time. Like this is Fringe, anything that comes to mind?
No, I'll definitely have some questions for the end, though.
Steve, the two people, so there's phenomenon curious people at the organization, and those two people that are in this 7-hour meeting with you, they help translate some of the new age woo into something that works in terms of physics. Are they
Sure. Yep.
are they also UAPTF, or does UAPTF come later?
So they were, I think it's safe to say they formally,
Or had
how should I say
connections
this?
to UAPTF
They supported the task force at one time.
at one time? Okay.
Right. I'll just leave it at
Yeah,
that.
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get the whole connected thread there.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
and you said the meetings. So that's not the only meeting, right? You have this one long 7-hour Zoom call, and then
No, two Zoom calls. So at 7 hours total.
7 hours total. So those are the meetings, and what happens after that? Like, what do you do when you?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, around the same time, I was yeah. So I was not literally, right, perhaps maybe one or two times, but I was knocking on doors around my own organization to figure out, who has this UAP phenomenon in their portfolio. Okay. And so I was asking everybody, right? And by the way, I'm like a social butterfly. I know freaking everybody at my organization. Been there a long time, right? I'm an extrovert, okay? And so I'm talking to everyone I know, and I have no filter, right? So I'm just like straight up like, "Hey, I heard about this task force. What do you know?" Right? Just like straight up asking people. And eventually I kind of decide, or I hear some things, and then I just take a look at my organization, and I'm thinking, okay, this is the part of my organization that has it, right? That has this in their portfolio. Okay. And so I look for job vacancies, right? And so sure enough, there's a job vacancy. And I'm a GS13, so it's at my level. So I decide to apply for the job, and I get it. Okay, I get the job. It takes a few months for me to come on board, but I get the job, and I report to duty like later on. Okay, but I'm still working at headquarters. But this is just it's an internal move, right, within the building. So I get this job, and I'm there about, after I have my meetings with Anjali. I'm there at this new job. I'm there about 2 weeks, okay, and I feel kind of pushed, right, or nudged, right. I feel pushed to tell my boss about what's going on, okay, and this is crazy, right? I mean, 2 weeks into a new job, and you're going to start talking about UFOs and aliens and Anjali and bases and mountains, like that's insane. Okay, this is career killer. All right, but so after these two meetings, and before I told my boss, let me just back up 1 second. Before I told my boss, I got a phone call with the task force. All right, and I wanted to tell them about these 7 hour, these 7 hours I spent with Anjali. So I'm talking to the task force. I'm like, yeah, this is a crazy story, right? They're on the other end, right? They're like, hang on, Steve. Let me put you on speaker. Hey, so and so, get in here, right? Listen to this, okay? And so, like, they're kind of on the edge of their seat here, right? Listening to me tell about Anjali's story. I spent about an hour, right, on the phone telling them about Anjali's story, okay? And then after that, I I told my boss, right? I decided I need to tell my boss. I don't know why, but I needed to tell my boss. Now, keep in mind, right? I believed I was in the part of the organization that has this UAP portfolio. Okay. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't been exposed to it, right? But I have a pretty damn good inkling I'm there. I'm like right where I need to be. Okay. So I say, hey boss, can I talk to you for a minute? So I get inside there and I tell him it takes me about an hour to get through it all. I tell him and he doesn't ask me any questions. And he's like, "Is it okay if I tell my boss this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, right? Yeah, let's go tell him, right?" And so I go to his boss's office. I tell him. After we're done, my boss says to him, "Hey, should Steve, should he type this up, right? Should he type up, his phone calls, or not, or his meetings? Should he type up his meetings with Anjali and the task force and all that stuff?" And he says, "No, no, no." He said, "No, no, no. We don't want this. We don't want this on the computer." And when he said that, I'm like, on the computer, like what's the big deal, right? Like that seems suspicious to me. Okay, you could say, well, he was protecting his employee, right? From getting into trouble. Okay, sure, if you want to think that, right? But that sounded suspicious to me. And then that so that was a Thursday, and I leave that Thursday. I'm off on Friday. Come back in Monday, and the first thing they tell me is, "Steve, you got to go see the psychologist." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" But I'm like, "Okay, sure, I'll go." So this was like as soon as I walk in the door. Okay, they're like, "Steve, you got to go see the psychologist." So I go to the psychologist. I walk down the hallway, the long hallway, and I go to medical. I meet with the psychologist. The psychologist says to me, "There's two ways people get here. One, they volunteer, or two, right? A document is signed by their manager, and then that employee has to sign it as well. Those are the two ways you get here." She said to me, "Neither one of these is true in your case, so you're free to go." But I thought, I got to play the game here, right? I got to go through this whole rigmarole, right? To just go about my daily routine here. So I decide to stay, and I'm talking with the psychologist, and she says, "Do you know why you're here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I have a pretty damn good idea why I'm here." And so I explained to her the whole thing with Anjali, the meetings, the task force, right, etc. And so she says, "Okay." Um, so if what happens, so she starts playing, we start sparring, right? She's not playing the role of a traditional psychologist here, right? She's saying stuff like, "So if this information that Anjali gave you, if it became true, you would believe it?" And I'm like, it's a trap, right? Like I'm being trapped here. So I'm like, well, yeah, if she said some X would happen and X did happen, yes, I would believe it, right? Uh, so there was a lot of sparring going on, and then eventually she said, "Well, I don't think I have to commit you today." And I thought, damn, was that even an option? Like, holy shit! All I did was talk to this woman who has a wild claim. Meanwhile, you got this damn task force whose mission and charter is to investigate some crazy wild stuff. But there's an option here to commit me. Like, this is crazy. So she says, we end with her saying, "Well, maybe it's best that you don't tell a lot of people about this," because she asked me, she's like, "How many people have you told about this?" I'm like, "Dozens." I'm like, "I know everybody.
And
Like, I've told
and
everybody this
who was
story."
dozens at that point? Who were you telling about? You know,
This my social
your
network,
colleagues.
right? Within, yeah, my colleagues, yeah.
Uh,
Um, and so then she's like, "Okay, well, maybe you just shouldn't tell any more people about this." And that I had a sobering moment, and I thought, yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't want to hurt my career. I still want to have a job, right? So So that's what I did. So I went back to work. I went to my boss. I said, hey, I'm going to take the rest of the day off. Okay. And I'm going to give this UFO stuff a break.
And
Right. And he's
Steve,
like, oh,
Steve, do you now look back in hindsight and think you should have just, when she said you're free to go, do you think you should have just walked out, or do you think what would have been the consequence?
No, because I don't think my management obviously did not know how the process works. Okay. And that's, so they didn't know how the process works. They sent me in there without following the rules.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And then, I could have done something against them. I could have said, this is bullshit. You guys are sending me here without following the rules. Right. Like I could have raised my own complaint, but no, I think I did everything appropriately. Now, one thing that my boss's boss did say to me was that, he said, he said, when you applied for a job here, you knew that we talked to the task force. And I was like, yeah. I said, okay. So that I thought that was interesting, right? That he would ask me that question, right? And because he knows I know, right?
and
So,
you were expecting that phone call from them, right? After that long meeting, you weren't surprised when you got a phone call.
Phone call from who?
After the two long meetings, you had a phone call.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, I called the task force. I told them about Anjali, and then I went right behind me to my boss's office.
Okay.
And I told him.
I'm sorry. No, I thought they had called you. Okay. All right. I'm with you. Thanks.
Yeah.
I always had that question about the therapist story.
Yeah. Not therapist, psychologist.
Sorry, I stand corrected. the psychologist.
Yeah. Psychologist. Yeah. And so, okay, so where are we? So I decide, you know what? Maybe I do need a break from all this. Okay, I'm too into this, and so I try to focus on my work, right? But of course, this is still like nagging in the back of my head, right? That, and meanwhile, right? I am helping the task force, make contact with people, right? I am helping them. I'm introducing them to people, right, virtually, right? I'm making virtual introductions for them. I'm trying to help their cause. Okay. And so, and then where do we go from here? So a few months, it's about 6 months, later, and this is in the early 2022 timeframe. Maybe this is a good chance to pause. Can I pause here for a second? Answer any questions?
Yeah, I've been interrupting you nonstop, so I really appreciate this. Things are making a lot of sense to me right now.
Okay.
I have a couple. If you did want to take a break, Steve, I can jump in with just a couple of questions.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
Thanks.
So I was just wondering, to go back to you calling the task force prior to talking to your boss, what was their reaction, if any?
On Anjali?
Yes.
Yeah, they were on the edge of their seat, right? I mean, they thought this was interesting. Okay. And maybe this might even explain some stuff that's going on. Okay. Because it certainly felt like things were coming to a head, right? I mean, if you disclosure, if NHI was going to push disclosure on their own, and through Anjali and this whole expedition, I mean, that's huge, right? So this is I think this was seen, Anjali's whole expedition and disclosure effort. I think that was, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I think it was seriously considered, right? If for the briefest of moments, it was seriously considered, right, as something that would explain all the UAP sightings, the uptick, right, the uptick in sightings, and whatnot. So she had people's attention.
Okay, interesting. And then keeping on the Anjali topic, once you went back to work and you decided, that you were going to take a bit of a break, etc., did you continue to have contact with Anjali during that time, or did you just try to drop the topic altogether?
No, I still maintain contact. I did try to help facilitate that expedition, right? I thought any evidence. So here's what I thought. I thought on my own. Now keep in mind, this is all my own doing, right? No one has tasked me to do a damn thing, right? But I thought because, hey, I'm cleared, I work for the government, right? I work for the intelligence community. I thought that I could serve as a courier for any evidence that she may have uncovered at the mountain, right? On this expedition. So if it was videotape, if it was photos, if it was DNA, right? Like, I thought, okay, I will be the one to fly out there. If not me, then I'll find someone else, right? To fly out there, take control of the evidence, maintain the chain of custody, bring it back to the task force and or the organization that I worked for. Okay, so I was trying to, I was trying to help facilitate that. Of course, the expedition later got on pause, right? And so that didn't happen. But I was making efforts to help facilitate.
Okay, so during this time, you're still somewhat volunteering, if I get this wrong, let me know,
Yeah,
with the task force, trying to help
yeah,
them.
yeah. There was a hot minute, maybe a month, where I was just like, I should give this a break. But then, of course, I got back into it.
Okay, awesome. And then just one last thing, I just want to throw this out there for your consideration. I could be completely off track here, but just having
Yeah,
worked for a paramilitary organization and kind of being on the inside of that organization, I would like you to consider that you were actually set up with that psych. And that's just from experience. Sending to someone to the psych, there are certain things that happen if you have volunteered or if you have been sent and they voluntold you without the paperwork,
yeah,
which made
voluntold.
you a volunteer. And so you were
Yeah.
very much in jeopardy at that point. I just want to throw that out there that it was not a mistake in my humble opinion.
Well, thanks. With what Jason Sands, and I don't want to go off onto the Jason Sands topic, but with Jason Sands coming out the day after I came out a few weeks ago and confirming there is a program, that makes me feel like 1,000% better, right, about my own experience, okay, and the reactions by my own management, right, to the things that I was doing. So thank you
Yeah,
for that.
you're absolutely welcome. And then, obviously they don't want it in writing because of FOIA and stuff like that. But this was definitely a voluntold situation. They don't want it on paper because certain rules apply, whereas if you volunteer, other rules apply. So that's it. Thank
Yep.
you very much. That's all my questions for now.
Fringe, what do you think would have
Okay.
happened if he had just walked out and not talked with the therapist? Would that have changed anything?
I won't speculate on that. I think Steve knows what I'm
Yeah.
getting at.
Yeah. So, okay, so where are we now? So, this is like the 2021 time frame, the August, September 2021 time frame. Um, Several months passed, right? I try to stop my interest in it, but then I kind of get it back. Meanwhile, I'm making introductions for the task force. I'm trying to help them out however I can. And it's small, right? What I'm doing is small. It's not, it's trivial stuff, but it's something I can do, right? It's hey, I can at least do this, right? So so like I said, I'm still helping them out. And then what happens? So eventually, and then yeah, eventually, I get now this is about 6 months into working. So the office I'm currently in, at this point I'm about 6 months into it. This is like the late January 2022 time frame. Okay. I get told about a project. Okay. Well, let me back up. One day, it was like a Monday morning, I hear my boss behind me in his office, right? He says out loud, he says, well, he's going to have to agree to all this, right? The military, the polygraph, the whole thing. And I thought that was interesting, right? Like, first of all, who are they talking about? Second, right, agree to all this. Like, what does that even mean, right? Like a polygraph, a big deal, right? If I take polygraphs all the time, what is in the military? What do they have to do with it, right? Like, what exactly would the military ask of someone, right, to do something? And agree to all of it. What's all of it, right? So I just had a million questions, right, after when I heard this, and of course I thought they were talking about me. Well, the next day, right, I get told about a project that they want me to lead, and I'm not going to get into the project, but there's a project that they want me to lead, and I could potentially see a nexus to NHI. All right, um, and and they tell me, yeah, we thought we'd have to read you into some stuff, but it seems like we can get around that, right? And we can just kind of bifurcate that from the rest of the project, right? So the part of the project you're working on, you don't have to worry about any of that read-in stuff, okay? So I'm like, my first thought is, damn, right? Like, you know, kind of, I would love to get read into whatever this is, right? And then so I'm like, okay, right on. I got a new project, right? And this is a big deal for me because 2 weeks into this job, I'm going in there talking about damn UFOs and mountains and aliens and mountains and whatnot. So, you know, the fact that I'm still getting stuff to work on, that's a good thing. Okay, that means they trust. There's some level of trust that you know, in my ability to get things done, and that they kind of, I don't want to say forgot about it, but they just put it on the back burner. Okay, so so I get this project, right, and then the next week. Um, the next week, I start. Well, I should say this. Very soon after that, I got that. I was told I would have this project. Very soon after, I had my NHI experience. Okay, so I've kind of talked about right now, like what brought me to this point, and you know, I'm about to go into it, but I think now's a good time for me to just pause and catch my breath and answer any questions till now.
Yeah, Fringe, any questions up until this point?
No, I think I got mine in. The ones that I had, and then of course I do have some that I'll wait till the end. We can circle back to those. So go ahead.
So we're gonna have Anjali on end of the month, so I'm not asking you to speak for her, but can you give us any kind of TLDR that fleshes it out more than a disclosure expedition or a disclosure effort? Is there anything
Uh,
else that we? So do you know what I mean?
yeah.
There's whatever you can
Well,
give me.
yeah. You know, she as she has said in many interviews, uh, you know, she had an experience inside of a mountain, right, in the desert, and you know, she met with NHI Beings, and she came out of it, and she knew what she had to do, and she had to. She believed that it was her mission to bring an expedition team, a team of, you know, people from all different backgrounds, right, different disciplines, to bring that team back to the mountain and collect evidence of NHI existence, and then release that to the world. Okay, and in addition to really release into the world, also provide this to the government as well. Okay, and so that effort was eventually put on pause, and you know, now we're just kind of waiting to see what happens, where Anjali goes with this next. I would say don't count her out, right? Like, you know, I as much time as I've spent with her, you know, I fully believe that this experience happened to her. And now what's going on with it, right? What, you know, can we trust the beings? You know, what the beings want to do? You know, what kind of four-dimensional chess is being played here? I don't know. I have no answers on that.
Yeah, thank you. That helps. And so you must be. It must be curious to you too, right? So you're. This is like the most phenomenon likely sort of project type that you find, right? You apply for it in like 6 months. No, 6 months in, right? You get a new project, and this is the most phenomenon adjacent or proximate thing. And a week
Yeah.
later, you have your NHI experience. What is? How do you explain that? What do you make of that?
Yeah. So yeah, I get this project. I feel, or I don't want to say feel. I can see a potential nexus to NHI. Okay. And then of course you have my boss saying, well, we thought we'd have to read you in, but we can bifurcate this and basically kind of compartmentalize my effort with it, right? Just keep me out of everything else that's going on, right? Which was fine to me at the time. So as also during this time, I believe, right, and I have a few. So I have a few data points, that I can't get into to support this. But I eventually come to the conclusion that I have found the program name. Okay, and like I said, I had a few data points to support this. This wasn't me just kind of getting it out of thin air or even talking to people. Right, this was in my own research, and um, but so after I found this program name, I began having, and this was like only a week later, right after I'd been given the project. So uh, I began getting messages, okay, and I don't want to call them downloads. I don't think that's accurate. In the space between dreaming and being awake, I had a visualization of text. Okay, and the first one of the messages was quantum computing accesses the Akashic records. Tell Jack and Diane. Okay, Jack and Diane were in the cubicle next to me at work, and they had quantum computing in their portfolio. This is something that they looked at, right? That they researched. So that morning, I go into work around 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock in the morning. I reach out to Diane. I hit her up on Instant Messenger, and I said, "Hey, you're not gonna believe this, but I had a dream." I sound like a crazy person. I had a dream, and I'm supposed to tell you about this. I feel like I'm supposed to tell you about this quantum computing accesses the Akashic records. And she was just like, wow, okay. So 5 minutes later, she comes back and she sends me a paper, an academic paper that she found, right, that talks about quantum computing, accessing the Akashic records and using it for a military advantage, right? Because the Akashic records is, of course, every deed, thought, action, right? So if you knew every deed, thought, and action of your opponent, right, then you're good to go. I shared that with her, right? I think that was like a Wednesday, right? And then but it was getting a message like this. I had gotten one the year before, and it was a little more jumbled, but it was the same experience. It was uh, one NHI. The message was that one negative NHI group was using portals in Charlie Springs, Nevada, and Indian Springs, Nevada. And of course, we all know Indian Springs from Charles Hall, right, and the tall whites and whatnot. But this was the message that was communicated to me like a year before. I didn't know what to do with that message, right? I tell Anjali, I tell my friends at work, right? But no one knew what to do with that message. But this quantum computing, it's a whole different animal. Now, I mean, not only was I given a message, but I was instructed to tell the people that I work with, right, about this message. So I tell them that. The next morning, it was a Thursday. The next morning, Thursday morning, I wake up. And by the way, I'm meditating, right? I for the last year, I've been meditating. I've been working on myself as spiritual growth, right? Becoming a better person, better father, better husband, etc. Right? So
Why meditation?
I tried the hemisync meditation like 3 times, and I did that, and then I don't know. I don't know. I can't explain it, but I felt like I felt more spiritual than I had been in a long time. I just felt like I needed to work on myself, and it wasn't like I was a horrible person, but I had to work on myself. I had to become a better person.
And that started before you even had the message conveyed to you by Anjali, the meditating?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so just like self-healing, self-help journey, you want to get healthier.
Yeah, and work on my karma. Like just think about the wrong things I've done in my life and how I could have done things differently, and ask for forgiveness. That type of thing, right? And to whoever was listening, I wasn't even sure who was listening to me. I was just kind of floating it out there, right? Um, so so that Thursday morning, I did my meditation, and I feel there's a message that I have to write down. Okay, and I sit at my kitchen table, And like I said, this was after meditating, and I just intuitively know I need to write this down. And in that message, I write down, if you do not speed up or allow this awakening, we will. Okay. If you do not speed up or allow this awakening, we will. So I write it down. Okay. I write it down. I put it in my back pocket. I get in my suit. I go to work. That after that during that noon, right at noon later that day, I go and have lunch with a colleague. And this colleague is a friend of mine, right? We worked together for several years, did some great stuff together, and he was a senior analyst in the National Intelligence Council. So we're having lunch, and I kind of lean over to him and I say, "Dude, I found it." And he's like, "Found what?" It's like, I found it. I found the alien time travel program, right? And and then I said the program name, okay? And he just kind of said, "Huh, okay." I gave a half laugh, and then it hit me, right? It hit me. I was like, "Oh shit!" I said, "Is this like Fight Club? Like the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club?" And he just stares at me for a minute, long pause, and he says, "What were we talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like I just stepped in it. Like I just called him out, right? Like I said, "Oh man, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to do that. I really didn't mean to do that." And but then I remembered I have this damn message in my back pocket, and I'm thinking, and it's like I don't even think. I just say to him immediately, "Dude, I have to read you this message, okay?" Uh, because I felt like this message was intended for the folks that run the program. Okay. So I took it out of my back pocket. I read him the message. I said, "If you do not speed up or allow this awakening, we will." And he just looks at me, kind of pauses for a minute, and then says, "I'm just an analyst." Right. As in, like, I just work here. Okay. And I say, "Well, can you get this message to the folks in charge?" And he just kind of shrugs. And that was the end of lunch. Right. Like lunch was over at that point. Okay. And so as we're walking away, I say to him, "The universe is kind of crazy, huh?" And he says, "Apparently." And we walk separate ways. Now, when he confirmed, I mean, indirectly confirmed, right? And you say, "Oh, well, you misinterpreted that conversation." Okay, whatever, dude. Like, I know this guy, been talking to him, I've spent many, many hours, right, talking to him. I don't think I misinterpreted the conversation at all, right? So but I leave, I leave, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like, I just got confirmation that this is the fucking program. So immediately, right? I'm like telling people, I'm like, "Dude, I think that I tell a coworker, okay, I tell a coworker, she goes out and has a cigarette, right? And then and we come back in, and I'm like, "You won't believe this, but I think I found the freaking program here." And she says, "Oh my god." Right? Like this is like legit. And I give her the backstory on the task force and all this stuff. And she says, "This is legit." She said, "My first day here, in her first day in this office, not in her career, but she says in her first day here, her boss said to her, 'Yeah, you'll really like it here, right? We work on this, that, and the other, right? And oh, in the alien stuff, right?'" And she's like, "What?" She said, "Oh yeah, the folks that work on the alien stuff, they're on the first floor." And she told me this, and I was like, "Oh my god!" She's like, "I thought she was joking, right?" And then, and I mean, everything was just coming together, right? Everything. And so because I had this, because I now had this program name, right, in this message in my back pocket, that I identified 3 other people that I felt needed to hear this message. Okay. So one of those people was an old boss that I had several years back that I was very close to. And I thought, out of all the people that I know, he's probably read into this thing. Okay. And I think it's more of the time travel piece. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I did say, I told everyone, told you just now what I said, the alien time travel program. So is it the same as Jason Sands' program? I don't know. I'm just letting you know, like that's what I said, and that's what my friend said, right? So I go to my old boss and I tell him, hey man, I'm having a hard time here, right? Like I got this freaking message I wake up with, right? I just had this conversation with an analyst, right? About he says what was the name of the program? I tell him the name of the program. He's like, oh, okay. And he doesn't ask me any questions, right? And then he says, what might be going on here? What might be going on here is you're getting a message from the future, right? He said your brain feels like it's on fire, right? And then he starts getting technical with how this could work and neutrons and all this stuff. And and I'm thinking, dude, you're not helping me, man. Like I feel like I'm losing my mind, right? Going through this experience, and you're digging it deeper for me.
So this
Right?
is the scene in the movie, right, where the audience says this is unrealistic, and then there's some nerd explaining to them how it could work, right? It's the Jurassic Park
Yes,
scene
that's exactly what it
where
is.
the
Yes, yes.
DNA from a frog and a mosquito can give you dinosaurs.
And by the way, my let me go back to that conversation with my analyst friend in the cafeteria. Okay, when I said my message of if you do not speed up or allow this awakening, we will. At no point did he say, "What the hell's an awakening?" Right? Who is we? Right? At no point did he say any of this. All right. He didn't say, Steve, you need to go get checked out by doctor. You're losing it. He didn't say any of this. It's like he knew exactly what I was talking about. And I don't know what an awakening is, right? I'm not a new age person. Okay. I know it has new age flavor to it. I assume it has something to do with disclosure. I'm pretty damn sure it does. Um, but he didn't say any of that, right? What you would normally naturally expect someone to say. And so back to my conversation with my old boss, right? So he didn't help much, but he kind of it felt for me, right? The situation I was in. And then I tell two other people. The last person, this was my last Thursday, right? So this ended up being my last day at the
And
office.
Steve, you're telling
And
these people before you go to the first floor, or are you already speaking with the floor that deals with the alien stuff?
no, I did not talk to anybody from the first floor. Okay, I did
Okay.
not start knocking on doors.
W-
I did not knock on doors down there
But were you
and
trying to work your
start
way?
snooping around.
Were you trying to work your way up there? Because you've been working hard for 6 months, right? Like you're getting closer and
Yeah,
closer to the phenomenon. Why didn't you just go straight to the first floor? And
I'm yeah. Just for people that don't know, like in the intelligence world, people you don't ask questions, right, about stuff you're not allowed to ask questions about, right? So I could not go and knock on all the different doors, and there were many doors. I could not knock on the different doors and say, hey, are you guys working on the phenomenon, right? Is the program here? Like that is just not a reality for anyone.
yeah, I mean, I had to ask, forgive me. Okay.
Yeah, sure. So the last person I talked to, um and again, this is just intuition, right? Just my experience with him, where he worked previously, right? This last guy I spoke with, he was super smart. Okay, he was like MIT grad, like he's super smart guy. So I'm talking to him, and I tell him about my whole day, my crazy day, right? And I tell him, I tell him what the program name is, and he's like, I've never heard of it, right? Like, okay. um and then I say to him, I say, well, yeah, I got this message I got this message I got to read out, right? Because I don't believe you. I think you are read into it. I don't believe you. And so I tell him the message, right? And by the way, I understand how at this point I know what I'm coming across as. I'm losing it, right? It feels like I'm losing it, but at the same time, I feel like I'm being pushed, right, to go further with this. Okay, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do, is deliver this damn message. And I know I know I'm going to lose my career over this, but I can't stop. And so I tell him my whole spiel, and then afterwards he's like, dude, he's the only one, mind you. But he's like, you gotta go talk to somebody, right? You gotta go talk to a shrink or whatever, right? And then he says, if you don't go talk to somebody, I'm gonna report you, right? And I'm like, okay. So that conversation ended. I go up to my boss, and it's about 5:30. The day's over. I say to my boss before I leave, I say, "Hey, I need to go talk to somebody. I'm having a hard time with something. I need someone to talk to." And my boss was cool. He was like, "Yeah, sure thing, Steve." He's like, "We'll take care of you. So send me an email. Let's get this in writing, right? And then we'll take care of you on Monday when you come back to work." Okay. So I send him the email. Thank God I did, because what could have been a security issue, right, was a medical issue. It was always treated as a medical issue, not a security issue. So I sent him that email, and then yeah, I'll stop there. If there's any questions.
Fringe, I've been interrupting all along. Any
No,
any
I'm
calls?
good. The whole thing makes total sense to me. So hopefully it's making sense to everybody else. It's all really good stuff.
Cool. Thanks. Okay, so I come home on Friday, right? I'm just thinking I have lost my damn mind, right? There's something going on here that I feel like I'm a part of that I don't understand, but I feel like I'm being pushed in a certain direction. And I know my career is ending, right? I know it. And so what happened? Saturday morning, uh, before I wake up, in that same dream space that I mentioned before, the space between the dream and being awake, I get another message. And this one says, "It is done. SpaceX transferred consciousness to the satellite constellation, imprinted guilt and shame, added to karmic debt." And I didn't know what to do with this. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I looked it up online, and I didn't know this at the time, but 2 days prior, SpaceX had their big launch on like February 11th, 2022. And this was their big Starship, right? Like, I think it was like their first launch of it, right? And Elon was even quoted as saying, "Yeah, we got some weird stuff on there," right? So I don't know if he was talking about the payload or what, right? But I get this random message
Can you say the
about
message again
SpaceX.
really slowly?
Yeah, the message was, "It is done. SpaceX transferred consciousness to the satellite constellation, imprinted guilt and shame, added to karmic debt." So I don't know what to do with that message. I texted to my NRO buddy. I'm like, "Hey, I got this message last night. What do you think it means?" Right? He's like, "I have no idea. Maybe you're losing your mind." Right? Maybe so. So I tell it to whoever I can who will listen. And then like I said, over that weekend, I feel like I'm losing. I feel like my career is done, right? There's no I can't come back from this, right? I think that the whole time, I can't come back from this. It's over. And then so of course, me and my wife, we talk about this, and that didn't go over so well, right? um and I need a break. I need some space from what I'm going through here. So get a hotel room Sunday night, and
See,
I
Steve,
meditate.
when you said that didn't go over so well, I have like the whole thing. I have no idea how the development is as you're like certain you're going to lose your job. Do you know what I mean? How is this
Yeah, well,
unfolding with your home life?
yeah, well, I'm not going to get into me and my
That's
wife's
fine.
personal conversations, but I will say we talked about it, and things aren't going so well. Okay. I mean, I am the breadwinner for the family, right? I am
So she's saying
I'm the provider.
it's affecting you at work, right? That's like
Yeah, this will. and
yeah.
and I will say, and you know what, I want to say this too, and I'm not going to call out his name. Okay, I won't say his name. But I contacted someone who is out there speaking, right, about who was in the intelligence community and is out there speaking about UAP stuff. Okay, I contacted him because I thought he could help me. No shit. I thought he could pick up the phone. I thought he could call my organization and say, "Hey, Steve's having a problem here, right? Let's give him some grace, right? Let's give him some space to figure this thing out, right?" I thought that, in my head, I thought this is how it would play out. I could call this person and say, hey, can you throw me a bone here? Can you make some calls and just make it so that I have a job come Monday, right? So I call this person. It was around noon that Sunday, all right, and I call him and I say, hey, thanks. I've never spoken with him before. I talked to him and uh, I tell him, hey, I think I got this message right, and I feel like I'm supposed to tell people, and I think I found the program, and blah blah blah, and he says, whoa, slow down, right? And for 10 or 15 minutes, he 10 or 15 minutes, he's like berating me. Okay, this is not the reaction I thought I would get from this person who has talked about the phenomenon. And so for 10 or 15 minutes, he's just berating me. He's not letting me get a word in. Okay. And to be fair, I was going through something. So maybe I was talking fast, right? Maybe I sounded a little, out of sorts, right? But he says to me, he's like, now, Steve, I don't know you from Adam, right? And he just kind of goes on and on, right? And eventually I'm like, you know what? Maybe this message is for you, right? And I mean, it was like a movie at that point, right? I had this like kind of smart ass response, like, you know what? Maybe this message is for you. I said, I told the task force about the program, right? And I gave them the name, and he afterwards he just said, okay, all right, and that was it. That was the end of the conversation.
I'm lost.
Uh,
Maybe what message is for you? The message of the program.
if you do not speed up, or allow this awakening, we will.
Oh my God! So he was
Okay.
saying that's like personal advice.
No.
He was suggesting.
I got the mess. Remember, I got the message that previous Thursday. Okay. I call this guy up, right, that I think has the connections, right, to call my work up, right, and allow me to continue my job there. Okay. I feel like this is a person who could do that. He could if he wanted to. And that was not the response I got, right? And I shared with him, and in that beginning of that conversation, I shared with him the message that I received, which is, if you do not speed up or allow this awakening, we will. Okay. And so after 10 or 15 minutes of berating me, I said to him in a very smart ass way, I said, you know what, so and so, maybe this message is for you.
Oh, now I get it.
Right.
I'm sorry, it took
I
me
said,
so long. Yeah.
I told the task force the program name. They have it. Right. And he said, okay, all right. And that was the end of it. And I feel like, boom, that was, maybe that's how that conversation was supposed to go. Maybe I was supposed to let him know what's going on. And so that was the Sunday, and then, like I said, that night I get a hotel room to myself, okay, not far from where I live, and let me pause there for a minute to catch my breath. If you got any questions, let me know.
Fringe, anything you want to say?
No, I'm all caught up. I appreciate it. Everything's making
Okay.
total, complete sense and flowing very nicely.
And
Okay, good.
Steve, like you can take your time.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So that night, that Sunday night, right? I get some dinner, right? I just kind of just try to relax, right, and just figure out what's going on, and I meditate, right? I definitely, absolutely meditate. Okay, and I'm in the zone meditation wise. I don't know, I must have been in some zeta state or whatever state, right, comes with meditating deeply. I was in deep meditation, and so that morning, that Monday morning, I wake up and I decide, you know what, I'm going to fly to my brother's place in Texas, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fly. I'm gonna get away for a little bit, take a few days off work, right? Because they were expecting me on Monday morning to show up. Okay, so that was my plan. I buy a plane ticket right to Texas. I text them. I say, hey, I'm coming to see you. I need to stay. I need a break for a little bit. I need to get out of here. And I also right. I also get it within me to start emailing some people. Okay. After I bought the plane ticket, I start emailing people, and one of those people I email is a congresswoman, and I tell her, I say, I forget what I said. It was something like, I have something urgent matter I need to discuss with you. We know each other, right? Please, please contact me back.
And why is it sort of like just a healthy defense against feeling gaslit from some people? You have the program name, this is real. Like why
No,
start emailing people?
At this point, I honestly, at this point, I felt all was lost, right? And that now, I have to go further down this hole, right?
Okay.
Now it's very.
You have one
Now
foot
it's
in.
like, oh, I'm a man on a mission at this point.
Okay,
right?
you're committed.
It's like, I am fully committed, right? And, now I lost my job, right? Like got another argument with my wife, like now it's like, now it's fucking go time.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I send her an email, right? And then and this is, this is a true sign that I've lost it, right? At this point, I call the FBI threat line. Okay. And I call the FBI threat line, and I say, I give them my name, I give them the organization I work for, I give them my badge number, and I say, there's a program targeting, illegally targeting U.S. citizens, and and that they need to know about it. And they say, whoa, it was like you could tell, it's a call center. The people that answer the call center, they're from DC, right? She's like, whoa, slow down, sir. Like, what's going on here, right? And she said, what's the name of this program? I say the program name, and the phone cuts immediately. Okay. And I know damn well she had no clue what was going on, right? She had no clue, right? As someone that just answers the calls, right? What this, the name of the program was. Okay. So I say the name of the program, the line shuts off, right? I try to recall with my cell phone. I can't get through. I can't make any calls with my cell phone. I then use the hotel phone line, right? I can't make any calls out of the hotel. So then I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go to the gas station across the street. So I get on the gas. So I ask the gas station attendant, "Can I use your phone, sir?" And I use the phone, and I call him right back, and it's the same woman again. She's like, "You again? What do you want?" So I give her the name of the special agent that I believe needs to hear this, and I give the information again, and then that's it, right? The call ends. Okay. I get back to my hotel room, and I feel like a rush of adrenaline, right? That's the best way to describe it. I've had adrenaline before. I know what it feels like. My heart rate goes from like 90 to like 200 in seconds. And then I just intuitively knew I had to get out of that hotel room. Okay. So I grab my stuff quickly. I go out the stairs, right? I don't take the elevator. I go out the side stairs. I'm walking around the hotel building. And then I get in my car. All right. And I hear a voice. Okay. A voice that is not my own inside my head. And the first thing that voice says is, "I just saved your ass back there." And I'm like dumbfounded. Like, what is going on? Okay. And so this voice identifies itself as Malachi, like from the Bible days, like identifies itself as Malachi and starts talking to me. Okay. And starts explaining what's going on. Right. And not only that, but where we're going. So we are in my car, and it's at this point I feel like I don't have control, right, of my body, right? I feel like my consciousness is in the audience, of the movie that is my life, right? Like I'm just watching this play out, right, as this Malachi entity like takes control.
So Malachi is driving the car through you, like you.
Yes. And at one point I tried to fight back, right? Like I tried to kind of exert control. And this Malachi voice said, I'm having a conversation with him the whole time. And he says, don't, he says, "Steve, don't try to fight this, right? Just allow yourself to experience this." Okay. And
What
so
does he have, like a
and so
human voice
so
and a human personality? Like what kind of guy is this?
totally. Totally. He sounds confident. He sounds he's boisterous, right? He's funny. He's making jokes. I'm like actually laughing at jokes. And by the way, it's like it was effortless to hear this voice. I couldn't predict what would be said next, right? What he said made sense. It wasn't some kind of poltergeist like an entity, like, no, it was conversational. Like I'm talking to you now. And so the voice is telling me it's telling me we're going to this congresswoman's office. Okay, we are driving to this congresswoman's office, and it takes a while to get there. It's going to be like an hour to get there. And he says, the Malachi says to me, they think we're going to the airport. We're not going to the airport, right? Because I had a flight that leaves at noon. And I was just like shocked when he said that. Like, what the hell's going on? It's like, they think we're going to the airport. We're not going to the airport. And so I'm driving to this congresswoman's office, and Malachi begins to tell me what's going on. Okay. He says there are two NHI groups or factions, all right, that are in conflict. Okay. And one of them is positive for humanity. The other one is negative. And then he says, he says, and he talks very like I don't know if grandiose is the word, right? But he talks very. I'm not even gonna do it. I'm not gonna do the accent.
Please, I'm begging you, Steve. Like, we're not gonna get many Malachis in here.
Yeah, well, he says he's central intelligence. He says central intelligence wizards messing with the timeline, right? And so
he says it like with a funny dismissive condescendingness. Like, what are they doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Exactly. And then he mentions the negative NHI, right? And the fact that he does not like them. Okay, and he calls them out by name, and I'm not going to repeat it here, but he does not like them. Right? He does not like this meddling that is being done by these, quote, central intelligence wizards, and he does not like this negative NHI group at all. And so he's telling me what kind of what the state of affairs, like what is happening. Meanwhile, right, we are driving, we are driving, and we're looking at Google Maps, obviously, to get there at the same time. But he's like, all this thing is happening at once. I'm driving, I'm having this conversation, right? And he starts communicating with the congresswoman, okay? And he starts saying, so and so, you need to awaken, right? We are coming to you now. You must be prepared. You must prepare for us, right? We will arrive shortly. And he's essentially telling her she needs to awaken, and that this entity Aphrodite is within her. Okay. And so I'm driving there. He's telling me it's a long drive, so he's telling me what's going on, right? I'm getting kind of the background, right, over what's happening. And he's funny. He's funny too, and very confident.
Well, what's another example? Like, give me another example of how.
Yeah. He says, mantis. What does he say? He says, mantis beings, right? There are no mantis beings, right? He says, well, he said, well, maybe there are. So it shall be, right? So like he's kind of very playful.
Who picked
right?
this congresswoman? Was it him or you?
Say that again.
Who picked the congresswoman? He's like, we're going to this congresswoman. Was that?
Yeah. So I know her personally, right?
Okay.
I worked with a best friend of hers several times over. Okay. And I could see that, in her position, she may be briefed on this thing.
Okay.
On the program.
Okay. And Malachi, you have this intuitive feeling he sort of knows everything inside out, like an instant read on your consciousness.
Totally.
And
yeah.
And what about when he's talking to the congresswoman? Are you able to feel any part of her consciousness?
So I can't hear her, right? I cannot hear her. I can only hear him talking to her.
Okay.
Right. So it's a group chat, but I can only hear like one part of the conversation.
Okay.
And so we are. So I'm driving there. Okay. And hopefully I'm not skipping too much. I'm not leaving anything out that's
No,
good. But
take your time. The humor thing was helpful. Like it's hilarious that this guy
yeah,
has a
yeah,
personality.
yeah. He says mantis beings. There are no mantis beings. Right? Oh well, maybe there are. So it shall be. So anyway, we get there. We get to the congresswoman's office. And it's as if I know exactly where I'm going. I've never been to this place in my life. I walk in the building, right? I go immediately to the assembly room, okay, where people meet, and there's a podium, right? I go to the podium and I stand at parade rest. And I'm at parade rest for the next hour. Okay, I'm out of shape and I'm about to fall over, right? I'm standing there so damn long. And so what is being told to me as I'm standing there is that there is this congresswoman. She is explaining to a very famous podcaster. So she is explaining to him what is going on, right? She is telling the people, I guess the people of the world, right, what is happening, and with respect to the program. Okay, so basically, it's like a truth and reconciliation moment, right? And I can't hear it, right? I can't hear what's being said, but it's being described to me that this is what's happening. And meanwhile, I'm standing at parade rest, right? While Malachi is giving me the narrative.
And what
Okay.
is parade rest? I'm sorry, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, so it's in the military, right? It's when you stand with your hands behind your back, and it's not a comfortable position, right? But it's not standing at attention. It's standing parade rest, right, with your arms behind your back. So you can't move. I couldn't move. I couldn't look around. I couldn't even move my eyes. I could not move.
Wait a second. So Malachi is forcing you in that position?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it's not like I was fighting it. I was, he told me to go along with it, so I was going along with it. But at the same time, I didn't have control. Right. I could sense I did not have control. And so eventually, right, as I'm standing there, people from my life start popping into this group chat. Okay. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, I forgot one important point. Let me back up just a little bit. As I'm driving there to this office, right, I am told that there is the negative NHI that are on this planet. They will be visibly exposed all in one moment. Okay, for the world to see. And I said, well, this is, of course, this is news to me. I've never even heard of this. I asked, will there be violence, right? What will happen when that occurs? And they said to me, there will be violence at a local level, right? But this negative NHI, they would be allowed to leave. Okay, so exposed, but allowed to leave. And so that I thought that was
Steve,
a key
what
point
does
of
that
what they
mean?
told.
What does that mean? There will be violence at a local level.
They said, like, basically, if a family member or a friend that you see is all of a sudden revealed to be negative NHI, or they're in the same room as you, right? All of a sudden, like, there will naturally be violent reactions from some people, right, in the population.
Wow.
But
Okay.
meaning there's not going to be some formal, there won't be like this. The positive NHI is not going to kill them all. Okay, that's what they meant, right? Is that they will be allowed to leave, but there will be understandable reactions, right, from people who are seeing this for the first time.
Yeah. Okay. Natural consequences that proceed from that. That's sort of what that.
Yeah.
You said Malachi
Yeah. So,
calls them out by name. Are you talking about humans or NHI?
oh no, people in my life. Wait. Yeah, sorry. So people in my life started. I'm sorry. I'm going back to parade rest now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Go ahead.
after he tells me that the congresswoman is explaining the program, right, leveling with the people, people from my life start to pop up. Okay, they're in this. They start to show up in this group chat that's in my mind. Okay, and one of them was my ex-girlfriend from 20 years ago, right? And I was not the best boyfriend, and that stuff started popping up, right? So essentially she's like, I don't want to say confronting, but it's like all of a sudden, all these people there were no more secrets, and people had access to everyone's wrongs, and she was the first one that popped up, and I couldn't hear her, but I could hear Malachi respond to her, and Malachi was like, yes, John was wicked, right? He did many things he should not have done, right? But you need to forgive him, right? You do not have to love him, but you need to forgive him. And then all of a sudden these other people were popping up, right? And I couldn't take it. Okay, I could not take this guilt and shame, right, that was kind of being forced on me. And then on top of that, my youth minister, he pops up. So it's almost like I was on TV, right? It's like I was standing there at parade rest, and it's like I all of a sudden people are seeing me on TV for the first time, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's Steve!" Right? And so like they're like, that's kind of like the sense I was getting, is that people saw I was involved in whatever this thing was with the congresswoman. They saw my involvement in it, and so they were kind of jumping into this group chat, right? That we could all access. Like everyone was somehow telepathically linked, right? So the revelation of the negative NHI, they were exposed, and then somehow we were all telepathically linked, and that's what I was experiencing, right? Was this all of us coming online for the first time?
And
And then
do you view it as like a life review? And keep on going. I can ask that later too.
yeah, it does sound like a life review, right? And I think it's interesting. I wasn't just told this. I believed I was experiencing it at the time. Like I thought I was going through this shit. I thought this was really happening, right? So this my old youth minister, he pops up into this group chat, and I hear Malachi address him. He says, "David," right? He says, "If your mind does not bend, it will break," right? And Malachi said, David was having a hard time with this, with what was going on, because this is not something out of the Bible, right? This is something completely different from what anyone could predict what would happen. And yeah, if his mind does not bend, it will break. So he needs to be flexible in appreciating the situation. And then of course my mom came on, and then Malachi was like, yes, Steve was not crazy after all, right? There was something to this, right? He is involved in this, right? That type of thing.
So
Uh,
other people are being held accountable too. It's not just you, right? Other people.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. This was some kind of karmic, reconciliation that we all have to go through when we're connected, telepathically. And also too, I was specifically told we could have more conversation, more than one conversation, which I found interesting. Well, you can have multiple conversations at once. So I don't know how that plays with time or how our mind works, but I thought that was interesting.
And the mind
Um,
bending, was that, do you felt that advice was applied to you, that the mind needs to bend, or who is that for?
No, that was for my youth
Your
minister,
youth
for
minister
sure.
needs to bend. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you don't have to reveal it if it's too intimate, but did he have like a rigid minded structure? Did that make sense to you?
No, I mean, he's, I'm sure he, is pretty. I guess he would be considered rigid when it comes to, his biblical interpretation of how the world works, right? Um, so okay, so the group chat happens, and then now, eventually, I'm told, okay, it's over, right? The congresswoman, she's done. Aphrodite, right? She is done explaining to the world what's going on. And so I and then around that same time, Malachi starts messing with me. He says, Steve thinks he's losing it, right? He thinks he's losing his mind. Okay. And then so he says that, and then a few, like a minute or two later, he says it again. He's like, "See, Steve is really losing it. He's having a hard time with this." And so as I'm walking out, right, I'm at a parade rest. I'm now walking out of the damn office building. I'm walking down the stairs, and Malachi says he thinks he's losing it. Let's see if it's true. As soon as he says that, I gain full control. I don't hear any voices. And it's as if none of this had just happened. And meanwhile, at that exact moment, I get a text from my work. Okay. And my work is saying, hey, where are you? You were supposed to come in this morning. We need to talk, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just dumbfounded. I'm like, what just happened to me? I spend about 20 minutes in my car, and then I go to the hospital. I'm sorry. I spend 20 minutes in my car, and I'm thinking, I gotta go to the hospital. Like I have totally lost it. I'm hearing voices, right? Like this thing that supposedly happened did not happen. I call my family. I'm like, hey, I got to go away for a while, right? Because I'm just and then meanwhile, my work texts me at the exact moment I get control, right? So I'm thinking maybe there's something going on here I don't understand, right? Like why did I get a text at the exact moment? Meanwhile, like I said, I just got told that there's central intelligence wizards are messing with the timeline. So I feel like I'm just thrown in the middle of this, and at the same time I'm losing my mind. So I get to the hospital. And I text a few people before I get there. Anjali is one of those people, and I'm 20 feet from the hospital entrance. I parked my car in the garage, right, 20 feet from the entrance, and Anjali says to me, she says, she texts me back. She said, hey, I just got your message, right? She said, do not go into the hospital, right? She like they will commit you, right, if you go into that hospital. She said, why don't you come out to me, right? And I'll give you a safe space to stay, right, while you process like what's happening to me or what's happening to you. So that's what I end up doing, right? We coordinate, me and Anjali, we coordinate me getting out to where she lives, right on the other side of the country, and I try to make the journey out there. So I think this is a good place for me to pause and maybe take a sip of water.
I think we're all taking a sip of water right now, Steve.
Yeah. Okay.
Sip slowly. Friend, I'll always let you go first because I'm talking a lot.
I'll just wait to see where Steve wants to. Is there a place to go from here, Steve, or is this essentially the?
There
Okay,
is.
let's just
Yeah,
go to that.
I can go ahead.
Okay,
I just need probably another 10 minutes to wrap it up.
Yeah, can I ask two questions like that are relevant just to this
Sure.
timeline here?
Sure.
So when Steve says Steve thinks he's losing it, let's see if it's true. He's talking about you in third person, which
Yes.
He's not speaking to anybody. He's just being comedic and sardonic in his
Well,
wit. Who is he talking to?
I mean, well, he was just talking to everybody I knew in my life, right?
Mhm.
So, I don't, and also too, he was having communication with the Congresswoman, right? So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how to answer that.
But did you view that? I found that moment the most hilarious of all. If he was talking to you and he's the voice in your head, which would make most people.
Yeah.
I thought that was the most meta joke that you could ever have, especially in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know. Later I'll get into it, but later he apologized. He said he shouldn't have done that.
He says that.
Which I found that funny, that he would apologize later. So, yeah.
And what is he communicate to the Congresswoman? He's just communicating the message that she's going to pass on to the world, explaining disclosure and everything, or is there something else happening?
Yeah, no, I think that's what was going on. Like he activated her, right? That's my sense was that he activated her, and he told me that she's having a hard time with it, right? She's having a hard time accepting it.
Accepting
accepting that Aphrodite is some entity within her or whatever.
Okay.
Right. So, yeah. I'm hoping that Congresswoman, right, is Lue. I think Lue went to DC this week, so I'm hoping this Congresswoman in her duties is getting those briefings by Lue. That would be amazing. If that's true, that would be amazing to me. So we'll see. Who knows, right? If she has a role to play in all this, but if she does, that would be incredible.
And what do you make of the Aphrodite thing? I mean, that seems very vague to me. Can you just spitball here? What do you make of the whole Aphrodite thing?
I don't know. I go back to Tom DeLonge's Greek gods, right? Mention and that maybe they never left, right? And also too, I was told so eventually, and I'm getting there, but the second entity talks to me. There's only two. The second one is a female, and she goes by the name Mother Gaia. Okay, and she tells, what does she tell me? She tells me I lost my train of thought. She I'm sorry, I
No,
forget.
Steve, take your
Oh,
time. Like, this is
yeah,
amazing. I'm on the edge of my seats here. This whole thing
y-
feels like a movie, by the way. Like, it's incredible.
yeah. Oh, that's right. She said that the positive NHI faction, they have been asleep, right? But they are coming back. Okay, and I quote asleep. And they've been asleep for several thousand years. And I asked them what happened, and they said, one of them said, we don't talk about that, right? So I don't know what that means, but again, I go back to DeLonge's comment of the Greek gods, right, and what he was told by his quote advisors. And I know it sounds silly, right, but this Alaskan pyramid suppressing consciousness, right? Like, I don't know about that, but what if there was something that was suppressing consciousness? What if we were meant to communicate with each other telepathically, and in something that's suppressing that, right? And maybe suppressing our communication with these Greek gods. Maybe we're supposed to walk hand in hand with them. I don't know. I'm just totally speculating.
Yeah.
I have looked at my experience from every angle.
And I didn't want to break you out of the timeline. It's just I didn't want to leave Aphrodite and him saying,
Yeah,
like, we'll see if Steve is losing his mind. And so you're
yeah,
on your way to Anjali at this point.
yeah. I'm on my way to Anjali. Okay, and my credit card doesn't work. Interestingly, right? So freaking phones are hanging up on me. My credit card's not working. Right. I mean, there's no reason for my credit card not to work. So what that means is my car is stuck in the parking garage. Right. I tell Anjali, I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I can't even leave. Right. I am stuck here. Right. And my car is in the parking garage. So she gets me an Uber. Right. And she helps me leave the city. And I travel from there. I end up in West Virginia. And I'm in West Virginia, never been there before, right? I have no credit card, I have no money, right? I have like $10 to my name at this point, and she sets me up with a hotel room there and a friend of hers, and this I may need more than 10 minutes. This friend of hers, I meet him, cool guy, right? Former Air Force intel, and we're swapping stories, right? And the first night I'm there in the hotel room, it's pretty late. He leaves, okay, and immediately I get that feeling of adrenaline again, okay, and I do the same thing as before. I leave the hotel room, right? I take the side stairs, and now I'm running. I'm like looking. I have no car, and I'm looking for somewhere to hide, okay, and I find somewhere to hide, and now I hear Malachi again, and Malachi says they are coming for you, right? This negative NHI, they are looking for you. And so I'm hiding in this like concrete, like circular tube thing. And it's freezing cold. It's 20 degrees outside. I'm not dressed for the cold. And it's probably 1 or 2 in the morning. And they tell me I need to hide, right? I need to hide and to mask my breath, right? I need to do everything I can to make sure that the cold, the my hot breath and the cold doesn't reveal my location, right? So I'm staying perfectly still. I'm in a little ball, right? And they tell me I need to stay there like all night. Okay, so I'm freezing. It's like it's torture. Right? I'm freezing. I'm told I can't move, and I'm given a play by play. Right? They're telling me like, okay, they are coming closer, right? They are very close to you now. And then at one
Can you say
point,
more about that?
at
Like,
one
were they saying helicopters? Did they tell you how many people they were?
no, no, they were on foot. No, this is negative NHI. They were using stealth, right? They couldn't be seen, and I should say, I couldn't see them, right? There's no way I would be able to see them, but that they were coming towards me, and they said two things. They said I asked, should I fight back? Right. And they said, no. They said, we are like the deer, right? We are like the deer. We run away and we never get caught. And I thought that was fascinating, right? Like that they would say that. And then two, they said, God's veil of protection is thin but effective, right? So I don't know, if that was some prayer, right? That they invoked, right, or that would protect me. I don't know, but obviously they didn't find me, right? Also, too, was this a test of some kind? I don't know. But I took it at face value, like, okay, negative NHI are here. They're looking for me, right? Clearly, I pissed some people off, and they're looking for me, right? So I
I'm gonna
stayed
ask
there
the
all.
stupid question right now. Why did you think that was
Yeah,
fascinating? What was fascinating about that too?
the deer comment.
Yeah, everything he just said. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought I don't know, when they said they were in conflict, I assumed that they fight, right? That I would, well, that there would be some kind of physical conflict. But the idea that they are like the deer, they run away and they never get caught, never, really, like what are they using to, how do they do that? How could they possibly do that? And I don't know. I assume there's some kind of magic or tech involved, right? If true. um I just found that really, really, really compelling, that statement of theirs.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. So yeah, to wrap this up, you know I daylight comes. I'm walking around the town, right? I'm kind of bouncing around because I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do at this point. I I have comms with Anjali. She's like the only person I'm talking to. And I'm walking around Beckley, West Virginia, and I have no money. Okay, at this point, I have no money, and um, so the guy I met up with, right? He sees me on the road. He picks me up in his car. We hang out the rest of the day. Meanwhile, I got Mother Gaia actively talking to me, right? Like that hasn't gone away. Mother Gaia is the female voice,
And
right?
I
She's
know I
talking to me,
made you
telling
jump
me.
timelines, but when exactly did Mother Gaia first jump in?
Yeah, she jumped in when I got to Beckley, West Virginia.
Okay.
So she was not there when I was at the Congresswoman's office. And So she only showed up when I was in West Virginia,
And
and it was clear they had some kind of relationship, right? There was some, she was in charge, right? But there, and he was like supporting her in some
in
way.
some way. And didn't you toss your cell phone at some point?
Yeah. So what happened is the day played out. I'm talking to this Mother Gaia. I end up going to a post office. At the post office, uh, there's a man, an older man. He's walking into the building, and Mother Gaia says, "You see that man over there? You need to go heal that man." And so at this point, I was compliant, right? I was, whatever they were telling me, I was going to do, right? Assuming it wasn't going to hurt me, right? Hurt myself. Which is I know it's a crazy place to be in mentally, right? To say that, oh yeah, you're just going to do whatever the voice in your head tells you. But that's kind of where I was, right? You got this voice of God in your ear, right, telling you things, and that's the state of my mind at the
Well, I
time.
don't think that's crazy. Can you help me? And this might just be me. Everybody else might be following. But the moment where you're outside, so there's a second hotel, right, where you get through Malachi saying like you got to leave. They're after you. You're out in the cold for a long
Yeah,
time. Mother Gaia had already started talking to you before then, or after that,
yeah. Mother Gaia started talking to me when I was in the cold,
when you were in the
right? When I was
cold.
in the freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, it makes sense. I mean, your life is dependent. I think anybody, you know what I mean? Like they're saving. It's almost like
Yeah.
that moment in the Matrix when Neo has the phone and Morpheus is telling
Yeah.
him. I think that's intuitive to me. I mean, you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah. So yeah, so back to the post office. So Mother Gaia tells me I need to go heal this man. So I go up to him and I say, excuse me, sir, I'm Steve. Would it be all right if I said a prayer for you? Right. And so I put it was a very emotional moment. Right. And the old guy, I took him off guard. He was just looked around and he was just like, yeah, that's okay. And I put my hand on him and I say, you know, I don't know, I say some kind of prayer, right? Heal it, please heal this man, and afterwards he sees the Jeep that we're driving in, and he says, when I was in the Army, I took one of our Jeeps, the Army Jeeps, out for the weekend, and I accidentally wrecked it. And he was telling us this whole story. Meanwhile, as he's telling us the story, Mother Gaia is saying, you need to listen, right? You don't listen well, and you need to listen to this man right now. And so I'm trying to listen. I'm exhausted from the night before. And so, and she, and he finishes his story, and she says, tell this man he is forgiven. And I'm getting emotional just now just thinking about it. But she said, tell this man he is forgiven. And so I did. And he just kind of shook his head, and we parted ways. And uh, after that, I thought, oh my God, is this what I'm going to do? Like, be penniless and just walk around like performing miracles, right? Like, is this what I'm supposed to do? And there was, at one point, right, there was what they told me. They told me my role in this. Okay, when I was freezing that night, they told me my role. They said to me, I helped deliver. And I know this is going to sound like Messiah complex or grand delusions and all this stuff. I'm just letting you know what they told me. They told me that I help, as in not by myself, but I help deliver the awakening in every timeline. Okay, so you got this timeline component that I don't understand. I help somehow. And so got the help deliver the awakening in every timeline. And they told me that I would have to leave my family, right, and of course my job, right, but my family as well. And that, this was huge, right? So there was at one point, when I was dealing with this idea, this concept of me having to give up everything, I accepted it. At some point I accepted it, right? And I thought, this is it. This is what I'm going to do now, right? And it was a very intense. It was the whole thing was traumatic. This experience I was going through, and that the idea I would have to. Oh, and they told me, they said another version of you, right, would be with your family. Okay. And that every time you help deliver the awakening, you don't get to stick around for the good part. You have to leave, right, and go and do it all over again. So
Wait, can
they
you slow
painted
down?
this.
Can you say that again? I didn't understand that.
Yeah, sorry. So they told me I help deliver the awakening in every timeline, and that when I do help deliver, when the awakening happens, I leave, and I jump to the next timeline and do it all over again. So I don't get to enjoy, right, the happiness that comes afterwards, right? I have to. This is my fate. I have to accept my fate, right? In that there would be another version of me that gets to be with my family after the awakening, and just basically take comfort in that, right? This is heavy shit, right? This is, and if you say this was just kind of a mental break, I mean, this is such an elaborate. It's an elaborate storyline. It's novel, and it's not like I saw this in a movie. This was very like this is very creative storytelling, and it's happening like without any thought, without any effort from me, right? So I'm just trying to play the skeptic here, right? Saying like, how could this, or this could be some kind of mental health crisis, right?
And
But
I'm not
yeah, so
even there.
this,
I'm not even looking at the skeptically, right? Like, I just want to make sure I understand the message. I'm not concerned whether it's a savior
sure,
complex or something. The
yeah.
am I understanding this correctly, that if you don't, is there a version? Is there ever a time when you're like, no, I want to stay with my family, and then the awakening doesn't happen, or can you always not help yourself?
I don't know. I mean, the way they presented to me this is, it's almost like I chose this, right? I
Okay.
chose this fate. And yeah, and then that's it. I have to accept this.
And is your
And
feeling, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, so a lot of, and I'm not gonna, for the sake of time,
We
right?
have a lot of time,
And
unless like the time you
I
might.
know, but this is
The good
this
shit,
was just
Steve.
well, it was very, a lot of this was very much about my personal spiritual growth, right? And by the end of it, right, they said I had defeated death, eternity, and the devil, right? So I mean, this was an experience, man. I mean, at the end, I end up, I'm another, so I because my brain is so, it's so exhausted, right? Like going through this whole experience, I can't hold any numbers in my head, right? And so I forget what hotel room I'm in, and because they put me up in a hotel, and I there was no, I didn't have the hotel room number on my key, so I forget where, so I can't get back in the hotel. That's what the point I'm trying to make. So it's another night, right, of staying out in the cold, and I had no place to go. And she told me there was one point, there was another point where once again they were coming after me, right, and I had to stay out in the cold again, and she told me, oh, she did say, you need to think about, you need to think about, your children. You need to think of a loving memory, right, of your children. And I tried, and she said, the negative NHI. She said they are not letting you. They are doing something to your mind. They are not letting you, feel that love that comes with that memory. And so I'm trying my best, right, to think and to close my eyes and think of memories, but I can't do it. And eventually she says that negative NHI, they've gone away. There's nothing to worry about. And she says, but you do need to spend another night in the cold. And I was like, no. It's like I snapped out of it. It's like, no, I will not do this, right? If I stay here again, it is even colder than the night before. I will die. I will die in the cold. I'm not staying here. And she said, if you do not stay here, we will cut off communication. And I was like, fine, right? So be it. And so they did. They cut off communication. I could feel a difference, right? Like I could feel it. Like before, there was a feeling that came with it. Being in communication with them like this, I could feel it gone. And so now I'm alone. I'm penniless. I have no money, and I'm in the cold, freezing, and I'm walking around Beckley, West Virginia, and there's no homeless shelter in West Virginia, and or Beckley. And so the only thing I can do is call 911 and go to the hospital. And so I get to the hospital, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I get to the hospital, and I have they do diagnose me. I end up having like, my body was going through something during this, acute UTI, acute kidney injury, transaminitis with the liver, right? So, but the most important thing was I had a warm place to stay, and so I and in contact with Mother Gaia, Malachi, it did come back, right? And she did say, like, I was being put through spiritual tests. These were all tests I was going through. This was just another test. And because she told me, she said, we knew you would go to the hospital. You had nowhere else to go, right? So like it sounds cruel, and maybe it is cruel, but it was also like a spiritual growth thing, right? And because the main point she wanted to make to me that I walked away with was that it was all about love, right? Like this whole system that's set up here, it's about love. And that was the main point, right?
What was the main
And
point
so
about
there
asking you to freeze like a third night? What was the main point of
yeah, I
that?
mean, yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. And maybe she knew I wouldn't agree, right? but as far as the spiritual lessons that she communicated to me, it was definitely love and divine feminine, right? Um, and then at one point she called me her champion, right? And I was not comfortable with that. I was, I'm a humble guy. Like, I don't want to be called champion of anything. Like, I said, how about faithful servant, right? And so, so it was interesting, like, being able to hear these voices communicate with you, and then at the same time you can have your own thoughts, right? And try to assess the situation. So I was very self-aware, that I'm having this experience, I'm going through this is otherworldly, what I'm going through. um so yeah, trying to think.
And Steve, did you have any guilt over not freezing a third night? I hope you didn't. But I mean, do you know what I'm asking you?
I've Yeah, I've certainly thought about it, like, maybe I didn't pass the test here, right? Maybe I didn't go far enough, yeah, to be honest, of course, and also too, I think, maybe, and this is like reflecting on my experience, like Matthew Roberts, maybe this whole experience was like what Matthew Roberts experienced. This was like some type of hero's journey that is available to everyone, right? And you have these little magical helpers, like, help you go through this to change you, as spiritually. Or maybe this is exactly what happened to me, happened to exactly, it was very literal. This did happen, right? I don't know.
Is it okay if, like, Fringe, can you jump in by all means? I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome, Steve. Thank you so much for being here and being so vulnerable. And it takes a lot of courage to come into these rooms and talk about stuff that sounds kooky to other people, right?
Yeah.
We do have a person. This person has got the purple picture. His name is Alone. He is kind of indicating that he would like to come up to somewhat vouch for your story, but I think he's also posted some stuff. I just want to alert Ulrich and you to that, but obviously to clear that through both of you before we were to do that. I'm not sure what type of jeopardies you might be in. So let's just keep that in mind, and then I'll go to my questions. So during your communications with Malachi and Mother Gaia, were there any visuals whatsoever? Were there any feelings going on? What was happening there? Or was it just the audio?
Yeah, so I'm disappointed. It was just the audio. If I had some visual, right, of what they look like, or I don't know, some kind of, you know, weird lighting or something, like, that would have been amazing, because then I would be like, oh, okay, this is definitely more than just me imagining this, right, or going through some mental health thing. Like, there's something real here, right? Unfortunately, I did not get that, right? So it was all audio. I don't know why it was all like audio to me.
Okay, so did you get any, so you didn't get any, did you get any feelings and no visuals or no concepts? Everything was verbal and no visuals or feelings. Is that right?
The only feeling I got was a negative feeling, and that was when they cut communication.
Okay.
It felt like they literally did something to where I felt different after that, and it wasn't just my kind of state of mind. It was, I felt something physically.
Okay, and then did you ever figure out what the purpose was for going to the office and standing at parade rest while all of these communications were happening?
I don't know. I don't know, because, like, what was told to me was, or what was communicated to me was that was a separate timeline. What I went through was a separate timeline. Now, I don't know if I don't know what they mean by timeline, right? It was a timeline of my own, right? Like, how does that work? How does time even work? Like, I don't know. I wasn't given that, but I was definitely told that was a separate timeline, and that I had jumped into a new timeline, and that once again I must deliver the awakening. Right? It's like I delivered it before when I went to that office, right? Everyone was connected consciously, and then now I have to do it all over again. Um, I'm not even gonna. I mean, I don't even know how to unpack that. It sounds unbelievable, right? And
It doesn't to me.
it sounds unbelievable.
I mean, like, you're on UFO Twitter. None of this shit sounds crazy to me. It sounds amazing,
Yeah.
but it doesn't sound crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't sound crazy, Steve. I mean, not to me. I'm sure there's people in the room who think we're all crazy, but yeah, that's on them.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you were trying to explore all possibilities and willing to explore possibilities. So I want to throw two possibilities out there just as possibilities.
Sure.
And then I actually have a couple more questions if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Possibilities, you did mention voice of God. The possibility of human involvement in this. We do have this technology. Now your body was being controlled, which tells me NHI, but I do believe we also have this technology, so that's not going to be a deal breaker for me, just in my brain. The possibility that this was actually to get you out of your position and out of your job. I just want to throw that possibility out there as something to explore for the future. We don't even have to talk about it today. The ultimate result of this, I always like to look at what ultimately resulted from the experience, and the ultimate experience resulted in you. I think at one point you were probably AWOL, and you end up having to leave this job in some way, shape, or form, which might have.
Yeah. Can I go over
Oh,
that?
yeah,
Can
absolutely.
I go over that
Please.
real quick?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, um, like I said, I continue to have contact with Mother Gaia, right, at the hospital, and she did encourage me. It was encouraging things she said to me. She said, I'm a higher vibration, right? I have a high vibration, and that it was all about test, right? She did confirm that it's all a test, right? Everything's a test. So I stopped hearing from her, right? I was at the hospital for a few days. I show back up to work, and they bring me in for an interview. They of course they want to know what happened. Where the hell have you been, right? So I tell them, um, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit. I eventually, after I get out of the hospital, I make my way to Anjali, and her and her partner allow me to stay there for a few days to just heal and process what I've been through. And I was hoping she'd have some answers. We didn't have answers, right? It was just a place for me to process my experience. So then I eventually come back, right? In my work, that's when they were like, okay, where the hell are you? You need to report back. And so I come back, I get an interview with the doctor, and with ostensibly another doctor. Not sure if he was a doctor or not, maybe some from somewhere else, but two people interview me, and I tell them everything. Okay, I from soup to nuts. I tell them what happened to me, right? Before, I tell them before the program. I'm sorry, before like 6 months before that, to now. I go into that interview, and this experience is still fresh for me. I do not feel like I had a mental health breakdown. I feel like I was, this experience was real. I don't understand it fully, but I had contact with some kind of NHI, and that I was a part of something bigger than me. And so I went into that interview thinking, all right, I'm going to tell them the truth. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to tell them everything that happened, and I'm not going to hold anything back. And I also thought too, though, that, well, maybe if I say it in kind of a third person way, right, that maybe I can still save my job, right? And so that they put me, I interviewed for several hours. They asked me questions, uh, told them everything. I was put on admin leave for a while they decided what to do with me. Eventually, they decided, Steve, this is too much, right? What you went through is too much. The voices, the traveling, right? Not showing up for work, right? It's just too much. So there was no like strike one, right? There wasn't three strikes. It was the first strike, you're out, right? So I understood completely, right, what their perspective is on this, right? You do not want somebody working national security issues that has heard voices. You just don't, right? Or if that's happened, then maybe, who knows, maybe you didn't get enough sleep the night before or something, right? But I understand their position. I don't hold anything against them. They tried to take care of me the best they could, right? On my way out. So I still can use them as a job reference. and I've moved on since then. That was like 2.5 years ago.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So I'm going to throw out one other possibility, and I want.
Oh yeah, voice of God.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So I did think about this, right? I would think the logistics involved, right? Because I was traveling all over the place. I was inside buildings, right? I think that, and not only that, it was a two-way conversation. It was not just the voice of God, like one way talking to me, giving me commands. No, this, Malachi and Mother Gaia, they were answering my questions, right? They were reacting to the situation. There was no hesitation in them remarking on a given situation. So that's my
Yeah.
thought on it.
Awesome. So I kind of do this for myself, Steve. I evaluate all of my experiences and say, what was this? Who was it? What's the end game type thing. And so with voice of God, I'm just talking in general about that technology, not necessarily just a one-way influence conversation. Again, I lean NHI on this because of the bodily control. So I'm just throwing this out there. I also want to throw out there as another possibility, and it's, for you in the audience, there is some speculation that gateway hemisync gateway can actually entrain the brain and make us very accessible to this MK Ultra type programming. I'm only throwing these things out there. And then I actually have two more questions. One of them was, you spoke about some after effects, physical after effects. If you could maybe detail those if you're comfortable. And then did you have any Havana type symptoms or any other symptoms afterwards and long term? And then I only have one other question.
No, so the only the only symptoms I had were, well, of course, I was exhausted, so yeah, I couldn't hold numbers in my brain, right, for like, directions to places, my hotel room number, maybe even my phone number, right. So my brain was mentally exhausted, so I found that hard to do. Using a map was hard to do. Um, and then of course I had my acute kidney injury, acute UTI, and then acute transaminitis. Those three things were the result of me passing a kidney stone, right? During the middle of all this, I had a kidney stone lodged in me, right? That was messing with all my vitals. So, I've heard some folks say, in these moments, where your body's going through something, like, it could make you more susceptible to the phenomenon, right? But yeah, the kidney stone, I've had a history of kidney stones, so that's nothing new to me.
Thank you. So no long-term effects?
No, definitely not. I haven't heard the voices since. I heard them for 36 hours on and off, and I have not heard them since. It's been about 2.5 years, and no issue.
And your feeling was that you had completed your mission and that's why the communication stopped?
I don't know. I spoke. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. Like I said, I feel like there's a reason. A few weeks ago, I felt compelled to come out and do that space with Courtney Marcassani to share my experience. Like, I felt compelled. Like, I felt like I needed to do it. Right? There was something pushing me. And then the next day, we get Jason Sands. Right? I mean, that was incredible. It was nothing orchestrated on our part. Right? Like he totally did his own thing, decided to come out. So that was amazing. So, maybe there is some kind of larger plan at play here.
Yeah, so you're
I'd like to
still
think.
kind of feeling the push and a little bit of influence. I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant feeling.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
like a
not
monkey
pleasant.
on your back. That's how I call it. It's like a monkey on my back. Interesting. Okay, I only had one question then, one actually legitimate question from your story, and I heard you speak very briefly. You called this program, you said, illegally targeting U.S. citizens. I'm not sure if you can go into that or not, or if that's something you just want to leave as is. But you were talking about the alien time travel program, and you actually said the illegally targeting U.S. citizens. So obviously, I'm very interested in that, if you can speak to it. And if not, that's my last question. And thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, just to answer that, I don't have any insider knowledge on that. I don't. That was just my. assumption or you know, best guess, right? I mean, I don't know why I include. Well, I do know why, but it was just my assumption at the time. Okay, it wasn't based on any actual information, and uh, yeah, I don't know if it's true or not. I really don't.
Steve, the vision of you speaking with the FBI hotline, I I don't know who we'd pick for casting for the movie, but that I had that image in my head of obviously they're not being trained for people who are, you know, talking about
Right.
uh, an NHI program, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not in their training books, and then you try everything, three different methods, and then you have to use somebody's phone at a 7-Eleven, and then you get the same
Yep.
person, right?
Yeah. The same
I mean,
person. She's like, you
it's
again?
perfect. So
Yeah.
you knew in advance who she needed to forward the information to. You like look them up in the directory.
I will say I know who I needed to talk
Okay,
to. Right. So that's all I
that's
can
fair.
say.
That's fair. And like, what came of that after? I assume they got the information. What's the aftermath of that?
So yeah, so my work, right, so okay, newsflash, I didn't get to keep my job, right? Um, you know, so they or I believe I already said that. But I as part of my exit process, I had to sign a statement, right, of the stuff I did. Okay. You know, talking to people about certain things, right? Like I had to sign a statement of that, and it's humiliating. You say you're staying in there with like 10, you know, not 10, but maybe 5 or 6 people, right? And you know, you're told you have to sign this to acknowledge what you've done. And I mean, yeah, it's a humiliating experience. I had to sign off on it. Didn't feel great about it. And but yeah, so they know, they know. And now they didn't have all the details that I've shared today about my experience, right? But they, yeah, I said as much as I could in that interview.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, you had a lot of time and investment, right, in your career, your blood, sweat, and tears on it. You served in the military. At that point, you served 5 years as a contractor, 11 years in intelligence. That's 16 years, right? 20 years. That's got to be like half your life at that point, right? So I get
Yeah.
I get the loss, even if it's not justified, of perceived. I don't want to call it status, right? But you shouldn't be losing merit, but you're getting the feeling, at least in your head, that you're being viewed as somehow not living up to an expectation, right? But beyond that, I don't. There's nothing you shared to me that is, you know what I mean. You didn't run naked through the street, smearing poop on a wall,
Right.
right?
No,
What am I missing
none of
here
that.
that's adding to the humiliation?
Um, I mean, just, I mean, just, I don't know.
Is it the loss
I mean,
of
just
your life?
reading.
Like you're doing the right thing, but you're also being pushed by something, and half the world is gaslighting you, and yet you're the only one doing it.
Yeah, yeah, and of course the thought goes in my head. It's like, you assholes, right? And especially now that Jason Sands came out and said his thing, right? I'm thinking, part of me is thinking, you assholes, right? You know exactly what happened to me, right? You know what happened to me, right? You know that I was in contact with something that's not of this world, right? Because you're working on it. You're working on this stuff, and you're gonna let me go. You have the nerve to let me go when you guys are working on this stuff. So of course there was that, you know, and I feel even stronger about it now. And I sound like a badass saying that now, but obviously I did not feel like a badass when I was in the building and having to sign this write up. You know, like, no, you feel like crap, right? So, um, but that was definitely my thought, is like, you guys know all this stuff that's going on. You're a part of it, but you're willing to let one of your employees go, right? Now I knew they wouldn't read me in, right? I knew that wouldn't happen, right? And at the same time, my outlook changed. You know, I started worrying about my karma more, right? And maybe, you know, working, you know, for an organization that puts one nation against another, maybe that's not the best place I need to be, right? So I was having this kind of internal, you know, reflection, right? So and now, you know, I got a job, right? I'm making a living, and like I said, they took care of me going out the door, right? They did do that. So no ill will to them, except for that one piece, right, where you guys know what's going on, but you still let me go. But yeah,
And the,
It's a betrayal, Steve. It's a betrayal, and that there's not much more hurt than from betrayal. So I hear you.
was there something in the statement where did you get to write your own statement, or did they say specifically something that you had to include in the statement? And it's fine if you don't want to address that.
No, I mean they just say that it was just you did X, Y, and Z, right? This is what you did. You need to sign here, right? Acknowledging that you did this. And I didn't have a lawyer present, right? Like maybe I should have had a lawyer. Um, you know, you're on your own, right? They don't tell you. They didn't tell me what I'd be walking into, right? And not only that, but I don't have access to the system. Okay, so I can't contact any of my friends and colleagues who could stick up for me. I have access to none of them, right? Because I don't have their cell phone numbers. I access them through work, so all that's lost to me.
That's
I
incredibly
can't even get my
frustrating. I didn't know that.
yeah, I don't. So none of these people that can vouch for me, like I don't have, I cannot get access to them. So that was frustrating.
Um, yeah, like when I hear your story, all I am is incredibly angry. Um, are you? Where is it okay if I ask? Like, are you? I assume you're angry at many different things. Can I ask what you're angry at, or who you're angry at now, or what you want to change?
Oh, I'm not. I'm good now. I'm good. I get riled up when thinking that the program could exist like Jason Sands describes it, and that I mean, let's be real, like I was probably ground zero, right, of where it was. And the just again the idea that all of this was going on, and that they didn't show some grace and allow me. But at the same time, I understand, like they what are they gonna do with me? Right, like I got positive NHI, or talking to me here, and who knows who they're working with, right? So, and again, and I say positive NHI, who knows if that's true, right? They could have presented a different, who knows what's going on. But yeah, from there, yeah,
I can tell you,
that's all I got.
what's going on, Steve. One thing that I know for sure is going on, and whether we know if this is positive or negative or not, one thing that's for sure is going on is we are being acted upon. Certain individuals are being acted upon by these groups. These groups appear to be in some type of a war or conflict, and they're using us. I say a lot of times that we are both the pawns and the prize. So this game is being played out through us. And it's kind of anybody's guess at this point what's going to happen, I think.
Yeah, Steve. By all means, respond to that. I had a question about the Malachi moment.
Yeah, I am. Listen, I am better having come out of this experience. Right, I am better now having come out. I'm just, the things that they shared with me, right? And for the sake of time, I'm not getting into it here, but they were spiritual lessons, right? They were, at one point they told me I had to think up some symbols, right? They said they couldn't help me, but I there were some symbols I needed to think of, and that I had to put these symbols in the right order, and that these orders, the symbols in the order there would be a message there. And the message at the end, it takes me 10 minutes to tell it, but at the end the message was, the building blocks of life are love, peace, harmony, and mind, body, spirit. Right. So, that's a positive message. Okay. And that was for me. Right. That wasn't something I was told to go tell the organization I worked for. That was just for me. So I think the two entities I spoke with, I think from what I can tell, they have divine. They have positive intentions for humanity.
The symbols. Do you see the symbols in your head still? Could you draw them?
No, I mean I could tell you what they are. I mean, just It was DNA, and again, the symbols they probably have no meaning to anyone else but me in that moment, right? And it was DNA. It was like a curvy line with two lines through it, through the middle, and then it was the circle. It was the the dove, the harp, and the triangle, right? I mean, those are basic common symbols, right? Like I said, have no meaning to anyone else but me at that moment. But it was an interesting experience to go through that.
Fringe, yeah, you don't need to raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm just, trying to let you know that I had a couple questions. Ulrich, I don't know what you and Steve are thinking about actually getting to questions, but I could probably start going down the list after a couple of questions. One of them, Steve, there was a lot of talk about how you and Jason, and I think this person, AKA, kind of all came in at the same time. And so I was just wondering, and hopefully you might have already answered this. Did you guys have previous knowledge of each other? Was that coordinated in any way? Did you just happen to all, jump into spaces at the same time? I was actually gone this week, so I don't have a lot of the background, but that was definitely one of the questions out there. And then I have another one after that, if you're okay with that question.
Sure. Yeah. So, so Jason posted his story in a forum, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, three years ago, on a forum on a government website, and that's when he talked about his encounter in the desert with the blue bean. So, when I saw that post, this was 3 years ago. I sent him an email. I said, "Hey, can I call you and learn more about this?" So I did. We talked on the phone for about 15 minutes, and I said thanks, and hung up with him. And then what happened? I saw James Fox. He released his name earlier this year, right? And I was like, oh shit, this is it. He's coming out there. This is his time to shine. And then I without mentioning his name, I briefly mentioned his encounter right in the desert, in my own space, and then he spoke with me the next day. We spoke for about an hour and a half. So that was our second time talking, and that night he came out, right, and he came out and shared his story in that marathon space. So I've only spoken with Jason Sands twice, aka this was not coordinated. And in fact, when he wanted to talk to me, I thought, oh shit, I really screwed up here. Like I should not even mention his story. But he was okay with it. He was fine. And so he said I got some minor details wrong, but for the most part, it was accurate. And then and AKA I never heard of AKA. I don't know who he is really, and so he just popped up out of nowhere after I did my space, or at least to me he did.
Was this the space with Courtney, Steve?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and then one of the questions floating around out there, this came from someone else to me. What do you think about this idea? And Ulrich, are you finished with the story part questions, or you want to stay with that? Let's stay with that if you have anything.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I still have some. I think we're almost done, right? You were almost done telling the whole thing, but I had a question about Malachi when he said there's Malachi calls out either the negative entities or the negative humans by name, and it's fine if you don't want to say the name. I think you said like you're not. I remember you saying I'm not going to say the names, and I didn't know if you even meant NHI.
I lost you.
Uh-oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Steve, when Malachi is warning about the negative NHI fucking up the timelines,
Yeah.
you mentioned that he calls them out by name.
Yeah.
And then you, Steve, say that you're not going to say the name, and I didn't even know if you were talking about human names or NHI names.
No, the NHI name. I'm just not going to mention them.
And you want to protect us from a hitchhiker effect?
No, I don't even want to bring that
Okay.
that negativity, right? I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to mention it.
Okay. And then that part. Oh yeah, and then there was a part that Malachi didn't want to mention. He didn't want to explain why they were asleep for 2,000 years.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that was interesting. That was weird.
Can
Right.
you share some of your thoughts on that? Like, what do you make of that?
Well, initially, they're saying, they're like the deer, they run and they never get caught. And then my thought was, well, what happened a few thousand years ago, right? Why'd you guys go to sleep? And that's when they were like, yeah, we don't talk about that. So I thought I did think that was off limits when I was communicating with them. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's off limits.
So
Got it.
that stuck out to you too, the way it stuck out to me. You're like,
Yeah, for certain. Yeah.
And this, okay, and I'm having a hard time getting a feel for Mother Gaia's personality. I have a character, kind of like an Iron Man guy for Malachi, but
Yeah.
right, but like help me give me a feel for the character and the personality of Mother Gaia.
Yeah. She didn't have. Oh, I think both of them were humorous. Maliko much more so. There was one point um, where uh, where Mother Gaia had asked me to separate my consciousness from my body, right? Like she said, like, you know how to do this. You need to remember, okay? She's like, and she said, I can't tell you, right? You have to remember how to do this. And so I was walking down the sidewalk when she was telling me this, and so I'm like, I don't know, right? Like, what do I do? Just kind of, I just like let go like a wet noodle, right? As I'm walking, I fall back and hit my head, and she's laughing, right? She's laughing, and she says, almost like, no, silly, like that is not how you do this. She's like, do not do that again, right? So, I mean, so I would say she had a sense of humor, and it was playful, right, at times. Um, it was never. I don't recall it being mean. Now, it was definitely stern when she told me that she would cut communication. That was so. Yeah, it doesn't sound like she's playful all the time though, but she had her moments, I guess.
I get, if I can be honest with you, and I may get canceled forever, but I get kind of angry with Mother Gaia after you've been freezing twice and you're not willing to freeze again, and she's stern. Like,
Yeah.
do you also have, do you mirror those emotions toward Mother Gaia? What do you make of that part?
Yeah, I think this is I mean, I'll be honest, I thought this was cruel, putting me through all this and then abandon me, right? Abandoning me. Um, only to come back at the hospital and be like, yeah, we knew you were going to come here, right? You had nowhere else to go. I thought it was exhausting, right? This test after test, like, when does it end? And apparently it doesn't. So, and at the same time, they want to use you, right? They want to use you to do something, right, that they apparently can't do themselves or won't do themselves. Uh, so they're testing you while they are using you. So interesting.
And why do they even care? I mean, like, all right, so now they're awakened, but they want to, or it's to our benefit to trigger the awakening. What difference does it make to them whether we awaken or not? Do you have any intuition?
I Yeah, my only intuition is that they actually care for us. Okay.
Okay.
They do not like this negative NHI that has partnered with certain elements of the U.S. government. Uh, that was very, very clear. It was loud and clear.
And the feeling you got from that is because what, it's sort of enslaving, it's regressive, it's selfish. Do you have any idea of what the motives are of the other side?
Yeah, I don't. They didn't get into that. Only that they were messing with the timeline.
Yeah. This is fascinating. The Aphrodite thing. I assume the congresswoman, has you communicated your experience to her? I think I remember you saying that she didn't, in that moment or later, she didn't get a message, at least not yet, from Malachi. Is that correct? Like, that communication
Yeah,
didn't make it to her
I've had
consciousness.
I've had no communication with her. It's with the congresswoman. It's certainly possible that she got my emails. She called up my organization and said, "Hey, what the hell's going on with this guy?" Right? That's possible. It's possible my organization called her and said, "Hey, let's talk about what happened with this person." It's also possible that she's involved in these briefings from Lue and others, and is on this journey. I also too, like, was this experience that I thought I was actually going through? Am I supposed to re-engineer that? Am I supposed to, like, make this thing come together? Right? I don't know. I don't know. I am just left with question marks, right? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now, other than come forward and share my experience.
So we have I have to ask this. I can't believe I'm asking this question. Do we not know whether you physically actually drove to that office?
No, I did. I absolutely did. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so that's fascinating. So Malachi drove you, or he drove both of you to that office. So in the hallucinatory realm would be, because you did see the congresswoman, right? So you're.
No, I did
Oh, you
not.
didn't?
I did not. No. And the entire assembly room was empty for like an hour and a half, maybe an hour.
How was Aphrodite represented? It was as a separate apparition, or just an understanding?
Just an understanding that she was awakening within the congresswoman.
Okay. And so, like, and when so you have sort of a life review, right? And during the life review, he's also talking to the congresswoman in the scenario, but you're not physically seeing them, right? Everybody's getting
Correct.
some kind of a exposure, disclosure, right? Everybody's getting some sort of a reveal.
Yeah.
And that congresswoman has not heard your story about this experience.
As far as I know, and I worked for her best friend. So her best friend may have hit her up and said, "Hey, this crazy thing happened," because they when my work was investigating me, they went to all my friends and colleagues to get the story on me, right? Like, what's going on with this guy? And so, the congresswoman's best friend, she may have been one of the people that they went to find out more, and as a result, that best friend may have gone to her, the congresswoman, and said, "Hey, this is going on."
That's
I don't know.
fascinating. And so that best friend does know your story.
Yeah, I would assume so. Yes, assume so.
Okay. And are you waiting for her maybe to also have a Malachi Mother Gaia level experience? Have you wondered that?
That would be awesome, right? It'd be awesome if she hit me up out of the blue and said, "Hey, we need to talk." That would be fantastic.
I'm pretty much almost done the medical stuff, right? With the, it sounds like you were dehydrated or something. Do you have any idea from the medical condition they told you were in, whether you would have stayed alive if you had done another bout outside?
That's a good question. I don't know. I know they pumped IV fluids into me, right? And another thing I hope people take away from this, from my talent sharing my story, is how the government treats this, okay? And how medical professionals treat this, right? So I won't get into my diagnosis any more than I have, but I will say they can't leave it blank. When someone hears voices, they cannot leave it blank, right? They have to put something down. And I think when disclosure happens, and I think it will be soon, when disclosure happens and we learn that NHI communicate through telepathy, as documented by, say documented, as told by many experiencers, right? Then these psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board, and they're going to have to rewrite their textbooks and say, you know what, maybe there's something going on here. And so I definitely look forward to that day when that will happen, because I will feel some validation.
Yeah, tell me about it. The God, there was. Oh, that's the thing. I think I remember talking to you 1 or 2 days before Jason Sands comes out, and it might just be retroactive memory, but I thought you were saying more people are coming out. Like, did you know that Jason was going to come out before the documentary at some point? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I had no idea.
that he would come out the next
I
day
had
or at
no
all?
idea. I had no idea. I just thought it was an incredible story. I probably shouldn't have run my mouth, right? But I think we're better for it, right? That he did come out. Um, we're 6 months ahead of the game here, right? In terms of when that documentary was supposed to come out. I also, I slept through his 6 hour, 7 hour marathon space that
I
he
felt
did.
so bad. I'm so glad you said that. You might have just healed me.
And
Okay.
when I woke up that Sunday morning, though, like, it was magical. Like, everyone that was in that space, they were elated, right? I mean, it was just like, wow, this person came out of nowhere and is telling his story. And I find Jason very credible. He doesn't need me to defend him, but I find him very credible. And I think we'll learn. I think there's more to his story that we'll learn at some point.
Yeah, Fringe, jump in.
Yeah, I just want to throw it out there again. There appears to be a person named JC who's actually posting, or I'm not really sure. Maybe trying to cooperate.
Sorry, Fringe, I can't hear
Oh
you.
no. Okay.
Sorry.
Doomer, Daddy, if you could just ask Steve. There appears to be somebody named JC who's trying to corroborate Steve's part of Steve's story. I'm not sure what we want to do with that.
Hey, Doomer, I
Yeah,
can't
Steve,
hear
I
you.
was just getting the thing. So, well, Fringe, why don't you drop down, and while you drop down and cycle back up, I'll tell him what you said. So, yeah, there's somebody here, JC, who claims that they can corroborate your story. Steve, do we want to bring them up and we can just be super smart about it and see, or would you rather not?
I mean, I certainly don't want anyone doxing me. Like, that's my biggest fear. So,
Okay, I tell you what.
I mean,
How about?
well, listen, we can put some trust in people. I mean, why
Well,
not?
I
I
mean,
mean,
you.
listen, if they don't,
I,
if someone wants to dox me, they'll dox me. They'll find a way.
hold on. There's
So let's
something.
go ahead and
There's
move on.
probably if JC can corroborate, a relationship with you, he can DM me something that I can DM you, that proves a relationship, and then we can bring him up. Do you know what I mean? There's a way to negotiate this. So let me. Are they? Let me look in the request thing. I don't see anybody requesting. So JC, go ahead and put in another request. 'Cause just so I can find your profile. And we can negotiate this in a safe way. I think we were almost done, but I don't know. I think we cut off just short at the very end. Am I wrong?
No, that's it. That's my story. That's what I feel like sharing today.
Yeah. The Anjali moment, you basically like nurtured yourself back to health, and then at work you had to sign the statement, and after that, is there anything else?
No, I mean, just after that was my out processing, right? I left the organization and had to find a new place of employment. So um, that's it.
And did you have any sense of like what the next step is for the awakening? It seems extremely. I can't think of anything other than disclosure. It seems like disclosure needs to happen. Disclosure triggers the awakening. Did you have any sense of like write a book, do a documentary of like how the disclosure happens?
No. Oh, how disclosure happens? I have no idea, right? I feel like Elizondo has some grand plan that he's pursuing. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Right. So, but it sort of ebbs and flows. This drive, right? There's like, all right, I need to
Hmm.
speak. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I'm open. I think today is my last interview. I'm kind of tired of hearing myself talk. So I think today's my last interview, and then, maybe I'll still jump into spaces as when I can, just for fun. But I think today's it, right? And again, the point of doing it today is the proof of concept, so Steve Austin can decide whether or not to invest in building up the Twitter infrastructure for a disclosure spaces network. If I can have any hand in that at all, man, I will have accomplished like so much.
And can I ask you the five stupid whys? Because I think it's not clear in certain people's minds. Like, why is that important? Like, yeah, why is it important that we have?
Yeah, I think yeah. Well, so I'm just speculating, right? But once high level officials start, and they have been, right? They have been, once high level officials start acknowledging that there's an NHI presence. I think you're going to get mid-level and lower tier level people saying, you know what, if that asshole can go out there and say something about it, I'm going to say my piece about it too. And so these witnesses, experiencers, right? When they're going to need a place to land, and it doesn't need to be some formal interview on a podcast or mainstream media, right? Like, not everyone's built for that. I'm not built for that, right? Like, I'm built for spaces. I feel comfortable. I feel, it's easy to interact, right? And so I think the bottom line is we need a place for all these people to go, right? Once more people, once more, official or former officials start coming out with their acknowledging that there's something more here.
And the formal officials, are you saying like they're not going to be able to do public disclosure? Like, I mean, I agree with you. Everybody feels we're stuck. I mean, Grush did everything you could imagine, right? And it doesn't seem like we're getting any further. But
I think we need to be patient on
really,
that. I disagree.
okay.
I think we just need to be patient and let some time pass. Like, we didn't predict Jason Sands, but he came out of nowhere. And others have reached out to me with their stories. Right? We may hear from them at some point. So I don't have any other Jason Sands on the line, right, ready to go. But I think this is part of it. This is what NHI wants, right? Or at least one faction.
I think you were the first domino, Steve. I think you had a lot to do with Jason Sands saying like, "Fuck yeah, I'm gonna go on X2." And obviously I don't know Jason, but that's how I see you. What do you want to say? What do you wish I would have asked you? What do you wish Fringe would have asked you? What are we missing?
I think that there's a okay. This is a good question. What I like about Jason Sands coming out is that, look, enough with enough with jellyfish videos, right? Enough with looking at David Grush's itinerary, right? Where's he going to meet? Is he going here? Is he going there? Right? Like, Jason Sands has elevated the conversation. He has acknowledged there is a program. Okay, he's talked about certain aspects of it, right? There's, he's mentioned, an NHI. I can't remember his tweet exactly, but he mentioned NHI is coming back for their tech and for the bodies. Like, we need to, the conversation needs to be talking about agreements made, trade deals made, and partnerships. That's where the conversation needs to be. So I think we need to collectively get focused on those areas, right? And we may not have, we hardly have any answers to those questions, but I think those will come in time. And I think it's worth, like, analysis, speculation, right, on what these agreements, partnerships, trade deals could look like, and who might be involved in those.
Steve, you do realize the only reason we can now have those conversations is because of you and Jason, right? Otherwise,
well, I would say it's because of Jason, but yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Either way, I'm not. I don't want to get on my first fight. But like the fact that we can even have that conversation requires that the conversation be brought here, right? And like that's incredible.
Yeah. And Grush is a hero too. Grush absolutely, he touched on, possible agreements haven't been made and whatnot. So Grush is, he is critical to this.
If Jason Sands' security could be at least not further jeopardized, would you want to hear more from Jason Sands in a space?
Oh, absolutely. Like, let's hear it, man. Like, let's hear it all. Put it all out there. Like, I know it's coming in September, but if he could give us any preview now, that would be amazing.
Do you really think it's certain that we have time till September?
What do you mean?
Like, I feel it's not safe to wait for if the doc's release date is September. I don't think it's safe to wait that long at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I'm not asking you to say it is or it isn't safe.
Yeah,
I'm saying,
okay.
like, do you confidently feel? Is there something that you know that says like, oh, it's not that urgent? Because for me, it seems like crazy to wait. I didn't know the doc might come out in September. I would be like, fuck no, we can't like wait for something that might have, from my perspective, I'm not going to put these words in your mouth, but for me, there's possible nuclear consequences. Are we really going to say like, oh, we're going to let World War III get ahead of us because a documentary is going to be released in September?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, these things are crazy to talk about, timelines, but I don't see how the consequence of disclosure for the world doesn't also have geopolitical consequences. It has technological consequences, right?
Right.
So you would like to see more, without, as long as like people coming forward wouldn't have to put their lives more at risk. Can everybody take this space and go to some recent Jason Sands post and post it there? Maybe we can get him into a space. Would you come back if Jason Sands came back in here?
I'm limited.
That's
I
okay.
am extremely limited on what times I can jump into the space, but
You would listen?
gladly, if Jason wants me in there, I'd be happy to attend for sure.
That would be awesome. I think if everybody right now listening like took took the space and commented on one same thread on the Jason Sands post, I mean, you may have been the reason he came in the first time. Who's to say you can't also influence another domino to tip? Because I do think what you and Jason have done, are part of. I think you're changing the timelines for the better. At least that's my feeling.
Well, I don't want to put any pressure on Jason. He can, he's his own man, and he certainly doesn't need me in his ear, pushing him one way or the other. But if he would like me to join a space, I would be happy to do
Well, I
that.
want to be very clear. None of us should harass Jason.
Yeah.
But absolutely, to many people, you're both an inspiration. And I think it's perfectly appropriate to signal that we want more of a good thing. It looks like we're going to be able to Fringe. Before we move on, is there anything you wanna add? Oh God, I can't hear Fringe. Steve, can you hear Fringe?
No, I cannot. I do have to. I have to leave up in probably like 5
Okay,
minutes.
let's.
So
I'm looking at the list. Yeah, Fringe. Go ahead. I can't. Yeah, I can't hear you at all. Go ahead and drop down, Fringe, and come back up. We're gonna take this one really quickly, and maybe Steve, all the other questions, they can post them, and maybe we can get a written answer from you. Is that okay?
I'm yeah, it's fine. I'm interested in hearing from this JC person. He definitely has my interest.
I don't see them in the queue. They haven't requested, so I was interested in hearing from them as well. They can
Okay.
DM me, and I'll forward the question to you. But I haven't seen them in there.
Okay.
Skyfire News, go ahead. If you can do it quickly, that'd be awesome.
Sweet, thank you. This is Red for Skyfire News. Steve, you had talked about this Aphrodite returning, and you did make reference to Tom DeLonge saying that the Greek gods are returning, and you did also reference how he had made these statements like when he was close with all of his advisors, right? Chris Mellon, Lue Elizondo, yeah, even Steve Justice at the time, Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. Is this belief that the Greek gods are returning, is that common amongst the intelligence community that's looking at this, or in that R space private server? Is this a common belief?
So I have honestly not heard that from anyone but DeLonge himself. And I think Peter Levenda has talked about it as well, but that's the only place I've heard of it. Heard it spoken.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yep.
Fringe, I'm sure you have something to say.
Yeah, so on this JC thing, it appears he's deleted some of his stuff. I do not see any doxing in the posts that I do have. He appears to be the person, or at least this is what he seems to be claiming, that he is the person who somehow either coordinated this Uber ride or was somehow.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
that's this person. He has since deleted his
Yes.
post, but he wanted to jump into the space and cooperate and just be a witness for you, although I don't see him in the room anymore. But I do have the posts screenshotted.
Okay. Yeah,
I mean,
great.
I do
Yeah.
need to attest, Steve, right? What is today? Is today Friday? Yesterday you did do a video call with me over Signal, and you did show me documents proving the organization you worked for. So I was deeply
Yeah,
grateful about
thank
that.
you. Yeah, thank you for
Of
saying
course,
that.
man. And you also proved the time frame during which you worked, and that you know were released in good standing. So to, to everybody here, I mean, of course, like my credibility, uh, you know, doesn't. I'm not saying this based on my credibility, but so sorry, you guys. I got a phone call, but I declined it. But like, um, Steve did show me the documents that proved where he worked for. Um, yeah, over video. Steve, what should we have done better? What would you have wished we asked you? What did anything else that we missed? And how was this for you? And please answer brutally honestly.
No, this is good. My first time, yeah. So I got a lot of feedback on my first time around doing this. You know, the narrative was hard to follow the first time. Someone said I spoke for a few hours, but not much was actually said. So that's fair. Um, but I think this time around the I really focused, and you guys helped me focus on the timeline and starting from beginning to end, rather than jumping around in different places. So hopefully it was very clear, like what I went through, and you know the sequence of events.
Do you feel like I pushed too hard on things you didn't want to reveal? Did you feel I was disrespectful? I know it.
No,
Okay,
no,
I know I'm
no.
obsessive and
That's
I interrupted you a lot, but like, is there anything else we should have done differently or we can do better?
Nope. I think this was good, man. I think you know I came here with the story to tell today, and I think mission
So I'm
accomplished.
gonna let Skyfire say that one last thing, and then I'll let you go. Everybody else waiting in the request queue, I'm so sorry that we're not taking you, but I'm sure at some point, Steve, you might be back. It's just not clear when, right?
Yeah,
Might be.
I'm happy to jump into spaces and answer questions. I think this is probably the last time I'll tell my story. I don't think it needs to be told again, right? People can just go back to the recording and just hear me
I
out if they
will
want
say
to.
people should use a Spaces downloader. Let's not rely on the link as a stream remaining. You know, definitely rip the stream. Of course, this is recorded, but you never know what's happening with the electromagnetic storm. So, Skyfire News, go ahead and ask your question.
Sweet, thank you. I just want to good job, Doomer Daddy, Fringe, Steve. This is very enlightening. Steve, quick question about the entity that you didn't want to name. Is it a name that pretty much everyone would recognize if you did name it?
Yeah, it's the group, right? It's not necessarily an actual name of a specific entity, but I just don't want to go there. It's negative. It's got negative baggage with it, so I don't want to go there. It was the same negative group that I was told in my first message, right? That they were using portals in Charlie Springs, Nevada, and Indian Springs, Nevada. So there's definitely a connection there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So, oh, and I want to say, Tiff, like, none of us could be here, Fringe and I, without like the three of us all bring something really special to the table. So even though you don't see Tiff up here, she's been pivotal. She's been absolutely seminal for making the Doomer spaces even a possibility. Tiff was the person who approached me and tolerated my boisterous, obnoxious personality. Just imagine me as Malachi, but less intelligent and probably not as funny. And she still wanted to doom. And whatever you're doing, Steve, I would say very clearly, um, you are absolutely worthy of helping us, helping the awakening happen, and making it and not forgoing your family. It's obviously you've already paid an incredible price. I just want you to know that you're also that you're also worthy of things ending up well for you. And I want to say thank you for your sacrifice, and I believe you.
Well, thanks. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Fringe, I'll let you, and then I'll let you speak, and then Steve, you're gonna have the very last word, my man.
Okay.
No, that was great, Steve. I really appreciated hearing your story today. Every single thing you said made sense. Sounds exactly right and spot on. And I have no questions whatsoever. And thank you so much for showing up and making yourself very vulnerable here today. We all very much appreciate it. I do want to apologize to anybody who we did not get to for questions. Lynn is in the audience. She did want to just support you on the hero's journey thing, Steve, and I'll support you on that as well. It's very much a hero's journey, no matter what happens or what so-called side we're on, or what's happening with this war. Us as individuals are all very much affected in the same way. And so she wanted to support you on that. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, Steve. Bye, everyone. Thanks for being so patient. And this is a really special moment, right? Thank you, guys, and please spread it far and wide. Fringe, thank you so much. Tiff, you're amazing. We couldn't do this without you. Bye, you guys.